problem. I appreciate you for coming and putting
I
up
had
with
a
it.
r-
So
I had a really productive conversation with Drazi yesterday.
I didn't see that one, but I saw your conversation with Rootsy earlier. I thought that was good. So hi, Lactoid, by the way.
Welcome, Toyd. This one's for you, as
What's up,
always.
brother?
What's up, guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yep. Yepers.
How you doing
Well,
today,
your
bud?
camera was working. Oh,
I'm
No,
doing
that's
well.
Kevin
No,
Logan
okay,
turning
okay.
his on, I think.
Okay.
We got two Kevins in a Portland.
True.
Look, I'm calling you all by your screen names. I'm not gonna lie. So
Why is that?
I'll never understand why my mom chose me to name chose to name me so presciently, but it worked out for my blossoming streaming career. So
True.
Testing.
Facts.
Testing. Okay, it's working.
oh well. Waiting for two.
I don't know why my camera doesn't want to fucking work. That's very annoying.
yeah, I don't know, but worst comes to worst, we just have your voice, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
I have
know.
every confidence you can butt in if you need to. So
Well, no, I'm a very meek person. This is a problem.
is that the problem? Maybe. Let me DM Doobie and see where the fuck he's at. Give me a second.
Hey, there we go. Fuck's sake. We might have a cat as well.
Just one more.
Shit.
Just for a minute before he turns his camera on, I always get that like nostalgia vibe now when classic Chud pops onto the panel.
The Chud old days.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same now that he's a person.
Yeah, it's so humanizing to see a face.
I feel
It's
bad
especially
for
awkward because he
when
basically
he
looks
has a
like
face.
British Wick. So when we get the two of them in the same room, it's the only time we can prove they're not the same person doing an elaborate art piece. But it's kind of disconcerting. It's like we got two parallel versions of the same person.
Probably. Anyway, I don't know where Doobie is, but we're just gonna start the show. You know how I do it. I'll introduce the topic, say hi to my chat real quick, and then I will let you all have your.
We can't do a show without Doobie. Where are we gonna get those amazing insights from?
He's sending me weird Pepe smiles. He's not saying if he's coming or not. He's just sending me Pepes. I don't know what it means. I don't speak Pepe.
You don't speak frog.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I'm here now.
No, it's fine. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'll go live on my end. I'll introduce the topic. I'll let you all have your opening statements, and you can get into it. So yeah. Thanks for coming, gang, and we will be live on my end in 5, 4. Welcome. Oh, you're gonna interrupt my welcome speech?
Sorry. My bad. Sorry.
All good. It's all good. We're starting off great, gang. We're starting off great. Welcome to another episode of the Depth of Certainty Show, where we recognize no matter how right we think we are, we could be wrong. We need to take that seriously. And on that note, I have brought together a team of individuals to discuss the recent shenanigans that Ye has been going on Alex Jones and other big names to be interviewed and saying very, very yikesy shit. Now, the question becomes, and what the discourse is whether or not this rhetoric is causing or going to cause a normalization of anti Semitism in America. Is it going to make it more likely that fascists or fascistic types of individuals are able to take power in American politics? A few people say yes, a few people say no. We're going to discuss it. We're going to get right into it. I won't bury the lead too much, and we'll start with Chud. Please go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there are some concerns, some troubling things happening, which I think is fine to discuss and fine to point out and fine to have a, reasonable discourse about. I think there is a level of hysteria that exists, though, that isn't really helping matters. And I think taking the take to this extremity of Nazism is currently being normalized in America is pretty insane. And that's something I took issue with, and then people took issue with me. Apparently, that's why I'm here. So yeah, I think that certainly troubling things afoot, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and get too crazy about things, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay, not getting too crazy. Chud is against wicking out, but that's okay. We were going to go next to F-bombs. Please, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Chud in the fact that there is sometimes an overreaction from the left. I do, however, get concerns that the tone policing, if you will, which I hate that phrase, but the tone policing that I see tends to aim towards the left. There's a large growing set of words we're not allowed to say, like fascist, Nazi, stochastic, genocide. All these words are being policed. And instead of discussing the actual concerns, like I hope we can get to tonight, that the hysteria tends to be more of the focus instead of what people feel hysteric about or hysterical about.
Okay, well, we will find out if that really is the focus. We'll see what comes out of this. Next up, we have Kevin Logan. Please.
Yeah, I'm be interested to hear what anyone else has to say on this, because whenever I go into either a debate or a discussion, I always feel like I know what my opponents are going to say, roughly speaking, and that makes it easier to combat. But I genuinely don't know how people think they look at the way in which Kanye West and certain other aspects of American society have gone and think that Nazism isn't being normalized. I don't get that at all. I can't wait to see what everyone else has to say on this, because I can't work it out how you could oppose that view. Frankly, it's plain as the nose on my face, which is big.
Well, speaking of big noses and things on your face, Doobie, hello.
Hello.
What's your thoughts on the Kanye situation?
I think the response to Kanye has done far more than he ever could to normalize and to spread paranoia about anti-Semitism and Jewish secret Jewish cabals leading the country. It's the fact that Kanye's business connections have been destroyed. They're now going after all of his music and all the platforms that it's on. The fact that he's getting so severely canceled because he dared to question this particular group, when if he said these things about any other group, then totally fine. I think that spreads the chaos. That spreads the Nazis. It's the fact that you can't say these things, because if you do, you get fucking destroyed.
Well, Doobie
And
coming out of left.
also to be super clear, there is some truth to what he's saying, if we're being honest. I don't know
Wow.
if you guys want to get into it.
I don't know if we do either. We'll find out. Lactoid, that's your teammate. What are your thoughts?
Hey, Doobie. Okay, so I think there's a reason why all the top conservative icons, the GOP generally, all the different sects of the GOP, and even Alex Jones have all either not supported Ye, expressly denounced Ye, or they themselves have been subject to the attack from Ye. There actually is a polling out on Alex Jones's interview. The recent polling indicates that the vast majority of both Republicans and Democrats, and the numbers are actually very close, by the way, but the vast majority of both believe that what Kanye said during Jones's interview was anti-Semitic, and both openly disapprove of both Kanye and Nick Fuentes, and both of them don't like it, that even the Trump supporters don't like it that Trump did anything with them at all. As to Kanye's effectiveness as, in of himself, assuming that, because he already doesn't have the establishment, I think it's not just his extremist views that make him ineffective, but also his clear incompetence with expressing ideas. I understand that he has some diagnosed issues. I don't know how much that has a part to do with this, but just based on the way he speaks, he's very clearly deranged. His behavior is erratic, his mood shifts at the drop of a pin, and everyone around him needs to treat him like a child, watching every response as he rambles for hours about unrelated extrapolations for fear of Ye throwing a fit and leaving or yelling over people. It seems as though his opinions are more motivated by a desire to not be disagreed with rather than any kind of deep thoughts. I think Nazism is now more closely associated, even more than before, with insanity and derangement, and continues to be expressly denounced by even the fringes of the right wing, like Alex Jones. And then finally, leftists are even more dangerous, so we should be worrying about them more.
Okay, well, next up, we have certainly last but not least, Portland. Please, what's your thoughts?
Thanks for having me, Wick. Always a pleasure to join you. Doobie, nice to meet you. Everybody else I've been able to speak to before. I think it's pretty clear and obvious that we need to draw some distinctions right away. I don't think anyone here is claiming that broadly Nazism or anti-Semitism is being normalized to the entirety of the US population by anything Kanye says. What I'm more particularly concerned about is Kanye's target audience of young African-American men who are primed to hear his message with very little political background and very little like historical understanding relative to the people being polled and the parts of the Democratic and Republican institution that other people on this side of the or on the other side of the argument seem more predominantly focused on in their opening statements. So I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys. I think that we need to be really clear that normalization can happen in communities without happening in the entire US population. And that's more what I think the point of focus needs to be on.
Okay, so Portland coming in with black people are more likely to be anti-Semitic. We'll see how that goes for him. Okay, let's go.
That's
With
what I heard.
that, we'll open up the panel and see what people have to say. Go ahead.
So I want to point out real quick that that is not even a hot take to say that like the black population in the United States has or the African American population specifically, not black immigrants from other parts of the world, but there is an disproportionate and well-studied culture of anti-Semitism that exists within a subsection of the African American population. The Black Israelites and Black separatist and Black nationalist movements are largely known for associating Jewish people, like the Jewish state and Jewish powerful actors, with cultural whiteness and culturally oppressive factors that have historically disenfranchised their people. There are a lot of reasons that young black men without historical background, without backgrounds and educations in political history and world events.
I don't think the polling supports all this shit you're saying. I think you're just full of it and you're making this up, okay? I think you're full of it.
I don't fucking care about the people that are being polled. I care about the people that aren't being talked about here, which is like the young black men who are probably the most primed to receive his message. They're his target demographic. And now that he's started associating with and incorporating his praise of Hitler into his music and releasing songs, there is no question that he has an unimaginable reach into a specific community that we already know is historically.
Listen, so we're not going to talk about polling. We're just going to talk about your conception of this group that exists. So
No,
we just got to go based on what's in your head.
Well,
No,
look,
absolutely not. You can look at the University of Texas professors on Jewish studies, Eunice Pollock's paper from June of this year on the Black community in the United States' unique relationship with anti-Semitism. There is a broad and well-established history.
Wait, what's unique about it?
It's statistically greater than the average white, like the
This is
average
bullshit.
American.
You're saying this is going to lead to support to Kanye from the black community. That's your fucking claim, and I don't think that's supported by polling.
Can I just-
What you said about this study is different to the idea that black people are going to support Ye.
this is a really weird thing because statistically it might be more significant, but you've got to bear in mind that African Americans are like 9% of the population. So it takes a comparatively small number of people to be anti-Semitic in that community compared to white people for that to, statistically flip. So it doesn't really make sense to use statistics as in per capita Nazism or anti-Semitism within those communities. Like clearly the largest particular problem with anti-Semitism in America is with white evangelical Christians.
As a sum total, yeah, but we're talking about Kanye West's target audience, right? The people
yeah,
who are
okay.
going to most directly engage with and hear his message, to the people who are going to seek it out, and the people who are going to have deep personal impacts felt by the messages that they hear him espouse. Not the fucking Republican and Democrat.
Okay, but what does this end up in? Because you made the claim that black people, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that black people are going to support Kanye West and maybe even support a presidential run. That's more or less what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't. I absolutely. I don't think that there's any meaningful number of people that are going to vote for Kanye West as president that's going to lead to any substantive impact on any population in the United States. He has no
Okay.
chance of becoming president or like mounting
So
particular.
what's the problem? What is the problem then?
The problem is with normalizing anti-Semitism as a sentiment in a community. That is a problem in and of itself, and something that once you have one of the most iconic and like historically successful black men in the history of American society directly praising Hitler and using his music as a vehicle to do so, you have a unique ability to create an anti-Semitic sentiment in his target community. I think that that's a pretty uncontroversial thing to say.
But
Yeah,
I
no,
just,
that's
you know, that's. So
I agree with
go
that.
on, Kevin.
I was just going to
Sorry.
say, I agree with that final point. I think there is a unique possibility for black people to be radicalized in that way through Kanye West. But I don't think, and actually this goes to, and I've forgotten your name, apologies, Lactoid. Lactoid's point was making about the mainstream Republicans denouncing him, etc., etc. That's fine because I think they realise that it's obviously, you know, political poison to be like, oh, actually the Jews are running everything. It's obviously, look, he went far too far with it. But the point isn't that the mainstream is going to do it, or most black people are going to get into it, but enough are that some of them are going to get into things like this and are going to be driven down the black Israelite path that I think is destructive and bad.
Yeah,
The fact that in America, the number of people Googling the term Hitler the day after
yes,
that Alex Jones interview spiked
yes.
massively. That I
What?
think is a
So,
worry because
yeah.
they're not just doing.
Why is
They're
it
not
a
just
Okay,
doing
worry?
historical
wait, no,
research,
no,
are they?
wait,
Okay.
it does matter. It does matter because when we talk about the algorithms that we deal with individually, personally, if I spend 3 days Googling, did Hitler invent the microphone? Did Hitler invent the highway? Were there actually this many Jews killed? If I spend 3 days Googling that stuff and searching it and looking at YouTube videos, my algorithm has forever been tarnished to give me some more of that content. Just so to say it has
No, that's not
zero
how Google
impact.
works. That's not how Google works at all. What are you on about? If you were to Google things related to Hitler, this is
No,
my
but
whole point. One of my fundamental points is that institutions set the stage for society. Okay, big tech is an institution that exists now in society, and I think that if you Google stuff about Hitler, overwhelmingly you're going to get stuff that's saying Hitler was bad, Hitler did the Holocaust, Hitler did this, Hitler did that, blah blah blah. It's all going to be negative shit saying how bad Hitler was, right? The only way that you're going to get to positions where you're finding Hitler being good in some way is if you're going to these like crackpot sites, like say Rumble, and you know there's less TOS and stuff, and maybe you are finding more extremist stuff on there. But I think most people Googling Hitler, that's probably the best place to look for stuff about Hitler because things on there are going to be saying he was bad. Surely, do you disagree with that?
I feel that there are enough articles you're going to see that are, but then as you start searching these things out, that's really the problem. I mean, that's the path of radicalization. That's the fishing.
Google is
that
not the path of radicalization. If you're
Well, that's
searching
the
up Hitler.
fishing that
Trev, hold
Kevin's.
on. Can I ask you a question? Do you think that like the vast majority of evidence that you're going to engage with if you Google like are vaccines safe is going to support the idea that vaccines are safe and effective? Do you think the vast majority of what you turn up when you Google that question is going to support that?
I'm not sure on the vaccine thing. Well, I'd say that with the COVID
Broadly
vaccine, it's probably going to be a bit more mixed because it was so new. But we're talking about two different things here. A COVID vaccine is new, and there were even some articles at the start of that
And
which were kind of a bit
anti-Semitism
skeptical
and
about it.
Nazism is
Wait,
new.
I'm trying to make a more
No, the
general
point I'm
point
making
about
is
your
if
ability
you're
when
searching up
trying to
Hitler,
look
you're going to
for
get
certain
results that are
when you're
overwhelmingly
trying to by
negative.
confirmation
Okay.
bias to seek out evidence that supports your argument, you're more likely to dig to page 10 and page 12 and into the bowels of the internet to find it. If you were Googling Hitler good, because Kanye West just said explicitly, Hitler was actually really good. He did a lot of really cool things. You're not going to stop at the first CNN article that you find that's like, no, Hitler bad. You're going to dig and dig and dig until you find things that engage your
If
confirmation
I may
bias.
ask,
That's how
before I let
radicalization
some other people in
works.
here, before I let some
But
other
so,
Yes, sir.
for
so I just want to
clarification.
say, just quickly, do you think people are googling Hitler and they're genuinely like, oh, Kanye said Hitler was good, so he must be, and they're digging for it? Or do you think people are maybe just going, I don't know, oh, Hitler? He was talking about Hitler. I'm pretty sure Hitler did some bad shit. Oh yeah, he did the Holocaust. That guy's fucking bad. Like, I think the amount of people who are googling Hitler, they're actually going deep to find the stuff that's pro Hitler is probably pretty minimal. I don't know if there's any data about that,
but you'd probably agree that it's exponentially larger after Kanye West goes on a platform to hundreds of millions of people and says
not
Hitler
I wouldn't go
actually really, really good.
exponentially. I don't think it's exponentially
But
larger. No.
larger, but larger, but larger.
I want to,
Well,
I
sure.
want to
also-
just real quick stop. I want to
sorry.
get some other people in here because Lactoid's been trying.
Sorry,
He's
guys.
being polite. No, it's fine. And thank you for the gifts up, camaraderie. Go ahead, Lactoid. You had something to say, but then I have a
Yeah.
question as well for Portland.
Well,
specifically.
I just have like a, I guess, a broad question as to the prompt, right? Because is the question going to be here that there's some percent of like diehard Kanye fans that are now going to like have bad opinions? That's if that's really the only contention. I mean, sure, but is the contention not like, is this going to have any meaningful impact in like American politics?
I think it was more specific than that. I think it was that black people were stupid, and if you say that Hitler
That was
was good,
Portland's. Portland
Yeah,
is
No.
the
Hitler
one
was-
saying black people are
no, he
stupid,
said that
not
they're
us.
uneducated.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
say
yeah,
Hitler's
that's
if Kanye says
exactly-
Hitler's
I
good,
did
they're gonna be like,
the
oh, Hitler must be good because Kanye says so. So I'm a black
But
idiot.
but no, but we know. So we know from
Jesus
the poll.
Christ,
We know from the
Nick, chill
polling.
out.
We know from the polling that like most, like the vast majority of black people are against what Kanye said. They dislike it. The vast majority of basically every demographic hates it. So again, is the question here just like some hoteps are going to get like rowdy, or is it more along the lines of this is going to have a significant impact on American politics? Because I mean,
Yes, this is a good question.
Okay,
because
I
yeah,
think
because
this
of
is
one, like, if it's like a few
well,
hoteps that are gonna like start getting like,
well,
oh, Kanye's with us. If that's it,
Okay.
if that's the impact of this, when most normal people are like, holy crap, he just ranted for like 8 minutes about how Kim Kardashian needs to come home to her king, and then also says some anti-Semitic shit, and then goes again to start ranting about like incoherent bullshit. That looks really
Before we
bad
move on-
for the
Okay,
Nazi
wait,
image.
Wait. So this is an ongoing like wave function thing that happens, and I've seen it just in this space since I've been here in like March. So when Destiny was hanging out with Nick, we were saying this is dangerous. Nick is a Nazi, and the discourse became stop calling Nick a fascist, stop calling Nick a Nazi. You can't really describe that, and what kind of harm does it do? Now that Nick's on a national stage, everybody's like, yeah, Nick is pretty harmful. Nobody listens to Nick. You shouldn't do anything with Nick. And the same thing happened with the coup. And it's just this ongoing function where we look at one individual event like it's the only thing that ever happens instead of looking at the pattern of we tried to yell about Nick months ago and everybody was like, shut up. And now everybody's like, who would ever listen to Nick?
Okay, can you explain
just-
to me the link?
No,
Can
but
you link me-
Kanye.
Can you link
Or
me
Ye.
back? You know, Nick Fuentes to Destiny. What has this current stuff with Nick got anything to do with Destiny's platforming of it?
Well, it's a discourse. I didn't say it had to do with the platform. It's a discourse.
But why bring up Destiny at all? It
Well,
doesn't make
because
any sense.
because we had direct interaction in this space with this person that when we see Nick on the national stage, everybody looks and says nobody would ever see that guy as anything but a wretched human being, except for months ago when we said he was a wretched human being. Everybody was like, "Man, what's the harm?"
The
So
polling
I just
indicates
wanna-
overwhelmingly people
I
think he's
just
a
wanna
wretched
point
human
out
being.
as well. I just want to point out. I think it's very, very amusing to me that Doobie was like trying to say that everyone else was racist by saying black people are stupid when he literally opened up in his intro with maybe the JQ is right. Maybe there's some bits of the
That's not what I
JQ that
said.
are correct.
That's not what he
Yeah,
said.
that's what I said. Well, hold on, I'll be very specific. There are parts of what Kanye has been saying that are true. It is true that Jews are
But the
massively
JQ bit.
overrepresented.
What,
Hold on, wait, hold on. Are you going to
I'm
disagree
at-
that
so
Jews
you're
are
doing the
massively
JQ. You're just doing the
overrepresented
JQ, my
in,
man.
in
What are you
positions
doing?
of power?
Let Louis
Okay,
finish.
can we?
You think
Okay,
it's
this
not
is this
true?
fucking. This is the stupid thing that
Why do you-
progressives did. Exactly the same with Black crime statistics, where just talking about it was verboten. Where I think what's better is to say that's a fact. That's a fact which can be proven. What's the reason for it? That's the important thing. It is true that black people are overrepresented in crime statistics. Why that is important to understand that. It is true that Jewish people are overrepresented in certain roles, but there's sociological reasoning as to why that's the case that doesn't end with saying, you know, but sure, but the thing is you're so reverse to even discussing it. And I think that potentially is
I'll
a bad
discuss
thing.
it.
I-
I'll discuss it, and also I find myself absolutely chastised there. You have policed my my tone there. Thank you. Yeah.
How am I policing
I'm
your
not taking
tone?
Doobie seriously because Doobie's a fucking idiot. Is the point I'm making? more than
Okay,
anything.
so you
Like-
agree with me then? You agree then that Jews are massively overrepresented in these
Oh,
positions of
massively.
power?
What's
That-
you've added the word massively
Wait,
there,
hold
my
on.
friend? What's
They're
happening there?
like what 2 to 3% of the U.S. population,
And whites
they,
are overwhelmingly represented in the Republican Party. Where are
Oh,
we going?
see
Like,
how
what
there's
is the
no
point?
wait, hold on. Do you see how there's no issue with saying that?
Yeah.
No, I'm
You see that
saying there
Jews,
is an
if
issue.
you see that Jews are
No,
massively
Doobie, no,
represented
Doobie.
in
There
media
is
in
a
Hollywood, etc., in the news
We
industry,
gotta let.
you
Okay,
just flip the fuck
wait
out
a
and you try
minute,
to
wait a
cut me
minute.
off.
That's
Right?
full
So
of
that's
shit.
that's
Let
You're
so
trying
Doobie
to
let
tell
Doobie
me-
finish.
you give this
No,
fact,
no,
and it is
no.
a fact. The air of like this unspoken evil truth that nobody can speak to, because if you dare to
Because
say
Because
it, Jews are
nobody
going to
can
come get you.
speak to
And
it.
that is why,
you say?
people like
Because when people
Kanye,
point
right?
out,
This is
when
why
people
people like
point out that
Kanye
Jewish
do
people
get
are
some traction.
overrepresented,
Okay,
because
wait.
stop,
it's
Hold
true.
on,
everyone.
hold on.
Every
If you
single person
criticize-
on here.
Fucking
I will
genocidal
mute.
shit as
Okay, we
well.
can do this. We can mute. Okay, so we gotta get one at a time. Doobie can finish, but then F bombs and Logan, you can have your turns excoriating him. Okay,
Let
and
Mind
then we'll move
Fury
on.
speak. Go on,
Yes.
Doobie.
Go ahead.
Shit.
Doobie
Forgot
finish, then
to
F bombs, and then Logan can excoriate him all they want. Go ahead.
And you can see it in chat right now. People saying that I'm being anti-Semitic. Right. All I'm saying is that it's true that they're massively overrepresented, right, in positions of power in the United States, especially in Hollywood, in the news industries, etc.
They're
Right.
better
In
than
the
white
in
people,
the
yeah,
shut
yeah.
up. In the music industry, especially. Right. So, and it is true. It is just true. And we can acknowledge that and say,
Superior,
hey,
I agree.
these are
Wait,
these
Kevin,
are
I
the,
got it. Kevin.
Please stop. There are reasons this is the case, and we can get into the reasons. We can teach people why this is the case. So it's not some big mystery. It's not some secret cabal that's coming to fucking destroy the world or whatever the fuck, or oppress white people or black people, or whoever thinks they're being oppressed. There are historical reasons they were pushed into certain roles. Right. That is just true. So we can acknowledge that. Right. But when you run away from it the way that you guys do, when you try to shut it down the way that you guys do, it gives credence to what Kanye and Nick say, where it's, hey, you can't criticize the Jewish people, because if you do, you'll be shut down. You have your platform taken away. You have your livelihood destroyed. You get fired, etc. That actually contributes to anti-Semitism.
Okay. F
It's true.
bombs, you may respond. Go
I
ahead.
fucking love it. I
F-bombs.
love it.
Please
So,
go ahead. Take all
okay.
the time you need.
So we have a Republican Party that federally is 99+% all white. And when we say that white supremacy is a systemic issue, holy fuck, are we shut down? The entire right has been passing laws to make sure that we can't teach about how white people oppressed other people throughout history. We need to change to the 1776 historical program as put forth by the overwhelmingly represented white Republican Party. Am I making assumptions here, or am I just pointing out facts?
You're making a lot of assumptions.
Well, then what assumptions do you think is made? Now, there's reasons for that, right? There's reasons why it's overwhelmingly white.
You just said
There's
it's over.
reason-
You just said it's overwhelmingly white, and therefore it's like white. That's linked with like white supremacy.
Well,
It might
then
be
you have-
overwhelmingly white, but why does
Wait
that
a
make
minute,
it like
what
linked
is
with white supremacy?
What is white supremacy?
The belief
Wouldn't
that like
be
white people are superior.
Extreme overrepresentation in making the laws.
Not necessarily. And by the way, hold on. Not necessarily, but I think you just demonstrated how the left primes black people for anti-Semitism. This idea of disproportionate like representation must mean some kind of like ulterior purpose, like must mean some kind of like
no.
conspiracy.
I didn't say, wait a minute. No.
And it doesn't, right?
wait.
That's where you're wrong.
You're taking the words white supremacy and putting a connotation to it. I'm simply saying.
I'm putting a connotation to white supremacy?
I'm simply saying 99% is a way over representation of white people making the laws. That
Would you
seems.
say that?
I
Would you
think-
say
I think
that
you-
there's? Would you say that there are systems of Jewish supremacy in certain sectors of our economy, i.e., the banking system?
Yeah,
News,
Jewish
news
people
media,
are
etc.?
better. I'm glad that
No,
Doobie's come out as a Jewish
don't be a
supremacist.
racist. Don't be a
That's
racist.
awesome.
I'm asking
Yeah,
F bombs.
good.
Would you say that given
Thank
that
you,
they're
comrade.
overrepresented, right, and especially in the C-suite positions, right? I think there are four corporations that own like 90% of the media. I'm sorry, 5 corporations that own like 90% of the media in the United States. All but one of those was owned by Jews, right? That's just true. So F bombs. Would you say that
And
these
is
are
Rupert Murdoch a
structures?
Jewish man?
That these are no,
No,
he's,
I'm
he's
good, I'm
actually
good.
he's actually the one. He's actually
I'm
News
the
Corp
one
is
here
actually
to
the
do
one
this.
that.
Yeah.
So he's the only
Wait,
one.
wait,
okay.
stop. News Corp is actually the one corporation that isn't run by Jews, right? The others are all run by Jews. You can Google it.
They just
So,
happen
wait,
to
one
own all
second,
the
please.
biggest
one
We've
second,
all seen
please, one
Kanye's
second.
phone.
Stop.
Yeah.
So F bombs. So would you say that if that's true, are these structures of Jewish supremacy?
Okay. if we could say, right, that there were Jewish people, and I don't know the numbers. I've seen as many things that say that it's Irish or it's whatever. So
You
I'm
just
just
heard,
giving it.
Doobie, it's
Hold on, wait,
150%. 150% of the media are owned by Jews.
wait.
If
I'm
you wanna
just going
follow
to
that
grant
side.
all of them for the. I'm
This-
just.
if you can't engage honestly, you're just
I'm
making
getting
Kanye look
there.
No, it's because you're an idiot, mate. I'm not
I'm
taking
getting
you
there.
seriously.
What did he
You're
say?
the
That
one
what,
saying
what
you're
did he say
random
just
voice on
then?
the
That was
sideline.
stupid. Like, is this not the same thing?
Everything's
Wait,
owned by Jews or whatever. Yeah,
I'm
he's doing
getting
the
there.
JQ thing. Yeah.
I'm getting
And the
there.
Republicans are all white, so therefore the WQ. It's fucking
Oh,
stupid.
no, it's the Republicans are actually
Wait.
running a conspiracy against people who are
Oh,
white.
they're actually
I am
white
actually-
supremacists.
Lactoid,
Sure.
can I ask you a quick question about something actually? So
I'll get
would you
there,
say
Doobie.
I appreciate, your what you're saying about the white supremacy thing. I see where you're coming from. Would you say though that like white people being a preponderance in politics is rooted in like the history of America and the fact that there is this racial dynamic that's existed in America?
So, potentially in the same way that like Jewish overrepresentation in certain fields could be related to some kind of history there. The real question is why I don't really care. I guess it's not really a question, more of a comment. Like as long as
Okay.
as long as there's equality of opportunity, like equity is not a particular concern.
Sure, no, that's fine. I think that white supremacy, to me, my interpretation is the way F-Bombs is talking about white supremacy is not in the same way that you're thinking of white supremacy. If it's like this individual thing of like, Republicans are like, we're superior, so we're going to govern. It's
But
like
if
white
we're gonna
supremacy
call
is a
that-
structural analysis, but
if-
I know it's a difficult word to use for it. I know that.
Right. If you're going to call that white supremacy, though, then you have to accept Doobie's premise that like the media being controlled by Jews is Jewish supremacy.
No, you
Well,
don't
'cause
have
there's a
to,
diff-
but I'm
can I
getting
just say,
there.
there's a
You have
difference-
to.
There's a difference in history.
I mean, I don't have
histories are
to.
important. Here.
Well, I mean, I can't make you, but like you should
Yeah,
if
that's
you're
why
if you're
I'm kinda
honest.
getting there.
White people through the GOP and previously the Democratic Party took power, okay? And it's not because they're supreme, it's because they were just fucking the ruling group at that particular time. Whereas Jewish people were relegated to having to work as essentially clowns, as entertainers, as jesters, and they moved into the entertainment industry and that became big. That's how
And
that
and the
worked.
and the all the clowns in the banking industry.
No, that was because of the
Okay,
history.
okay.
Let's-
Let's
that's because the history of
move
the
on.
Or the legal field,
Taxes
right?
in the United States. Yeah.
Little yikes.
No,
They're
that's
oppressed
because of the
far
history
richer
of
than ever
usury.
before.
See how
They
it's
were
yikes.
forced
See
into
how it's yikesy when like just the word Jew gets brought up, but then you guys can talk about how like the Republican Party is
It's all
white
as if there have been
supremacist.
loads of
Is
problems
white
against Jewish
supremacist and people don't
not
care.
white people.
No, but nobody
It's
like.
almost that's
So
a thing.
here's the fundamental problem, and here's what people see, and why I think that you guys are actually are the real threat is that people see this line of logic of disproportionate representation must equal some kind of like underlying motivation, must equal some kind of evil that we have to like focus on destroying. And people see that and they're like, okay, white people. If Kanye said what he said about white people, no one gives a shit, right? And then like, well, you look at the rates for like Jewish people. Oh, like the exact same principle that you guys have like instilled in his mind, he applies that consistently, and now you're freaking out. Just it's a toxic principle to start with. Just don't
No,
teach
'cause
people
he's
this.
not just applying a principle, he's also adding in, well, and maybe only 250,000 died in the Holocaust. Like, he's adding all that shit into it as well. He's not just
Yeah, he's
pointing
adding
out
he's adding
a
insanity for
slight
sure.
overrepresentation in media fields. He's doing full, like, genocide apology and denial. Like,
That part's not related. Yeah,
Just-
that
I
part's
wanna
just
ask-
insanity.
If I may, to the panel as a whole, right, and to kind of steer it back, maybe more yay focused than we're getting here. When it comes to Ye's rhetoric and his absolutely falling down this very anti-Semitic rabbit hole and things like that, how much do you think people are viewing this as simply evidence of his mental illnesses, right? Like, how much do communities, people, any particular community that he may be targeting or not, will not view this as what Kanye's saying is right, but oh look, Kanye's having a mental breakdown. Like, where do you think the weight
Well,
lies here?
I think Tucker Carlson is probably a bit regretful of the comments that he made originally because now, I think initially he was probably Kanye West was a little bit more palatable, and some of the things he's saying weren't quite as extreme. So like Kanye West had him on and was like, "People are saying he's mentally ill, but I think he's actually kind
Have
of
you seen-
saying some
have
stuff
you
that's
seen-
interesting."
Have you seen
Sorry,
the
go on.
outtakes from that interview? by
I
the way?
did, yeah, and it was crazy. He was saying
Yeah.
crazy shit in that even, and it's like they had to obfuscate that in order to have the interview. But I think now it's got to the point where any righty that isn't disavowing or stepping away, I mean, even
Everybody.
Candace Owens softly took a step back as well.
Who's with him besides like the crazy like white nationalists?
Yeah, I
Do you
don't
think
know
And
the
the
anyone.
average
hoteps.
person is like watching that entire 3 fucking hour Alex Jones interview, or do you think that they're watching like 3 or 4, maybe 90-second clips that are being circulated online where he says
but
like the craziest, most salacious
But what are
shit?
those clips? So, like you said, the
Yeah, the
craziest,
clips are
most
like I
salacious.
love Hitler and
No
shit.
one is
I'm
saying.
like,
No one is seeing this. Like, okay, so
Yeah,
to
and
those
it's not
of
like
you,
those clips are out of
yeah,
context. Like it's
yeah,
not like
they
he
are.
was
They are.
quoting somebody else. He was
But
literally saying, "I love
to
Hitler."
those
Yeah, it
of
was
you
pretty
on this
bad.
panel, real quick,
Yeah,
to those of you who are on this panel who are saying that, oh, I think this is going to lead to a rise in anti-Semitism in America. Like, given the response of almost every single far alt-right personality, all distancing and
Yeah.
disavowing, how do
Yeah.
these things connect here, right?
Okay, so here's your
so can I
problem.
address that? Go ahead, off F-bombs. Go ahead.
Okay, so the issue to me is a little bit different. I don't think anybody's going to hear what Kanye says and was like, "Yeah, that's based," unless they're already that way. I think that Gavin McInnes looks a little bit reasonable talking to Kanye, talking him down. I think Alex Jones looks a little bit
Oh,
reasonable
so your
talking
argument,
down.
so your
Yeah,
argument is that Kanye is so crazy
well, let him
that
finish
he's
his
making these
argument, Wick.
people. Oh,
Stop wicking out.
well, let me
yet yes, Wick. The argument is
I'm a
it's
prophet.
not the direct effect. It's the normalization doesn't happen by people going, what Kanye said is based. The normalization goes, wow, that Ben Shapiro fellow is really saying good stuff about like good stuff to tear down Kanye, or Alex Jones, or any of these people that are talking him down now look more rational,
Not
and
just
they do get, again, it's
So you're,
this, the
yeah.
algorithm
It's
is
not
based
anti-Semitic
on
though.
But wait, but Ben
Can I just-
Shapiro
can
isn't
I
going to
just
be
say-
normalizing anti-Semitism or Nazism, is he? Like he might be normalizing right-wing stuff and
He's
bad stuff
normalizing
he's doing.
Semitism, right?
Well,
Well,
yeah, he's a
no.
fucking
He's-
massive Israel
he's
guy.
Jewish.
No, he's not normalizing
Apart from the
Semitism,
Jews he talks
because the
down
Ben
'cause they oppose
Shapiro,
Israel,
I'm not
but-
Jewish. So that's not normalizing
Is that
Semitism.
true?
If
I know
to
he's.
Ben
What do you
Shapiro, I'm
mean?
not Jewish. I'm a secular Jew. I'm not a real Jew to Ben Shapiro.
No, Ben Shapiro. Hold on, Ben Shapiro doesn't think that if you're a secular Jew, you're not a real Jew.
Yes. Yes.
There's
He
no
does.
way. There's no way.
He's
Okay, I'll
literally
get
said
you
in
the
past-
clips. And
Yeah,
play
I'll
them
watch
with
it.
you
If
on
I'm
the
wrong
radio.
about that, oh.
I think
If-
he
and
said
if you
some stuff
oppose
about Jews
Israel,
in
you're
names
not a real
only.
Jew. Yeah. He said that in
Jews
the
and
past.
names only. I'm not.
Oh, wait, on like one of his like Zionist kind of positions. So he's a big Zionist for sure.
Yeah.
It's part of the moving process. It's sadly to me, it's, and I know I always sound nuts, but it's the same process that's been going on for a decade, from Gamergate, Pizzagate, to Q, to this. It's just this pipeline of slowly moving
all
people
connected.
into other things.
This is the
I
problem.
mean,
yeah.
he's
Millions
And
of-
yet we're
tens
still
of-
moving to the
tens
People
of
are
left.
treating
millions
this
of
like, oh,
people.
because it's not going to lead to the rise of the Nazis in the street bumping Jesus walks as they fucking march the Jews to their next camp. It's not a problem. And that's just fucking insane. Obviously, causing a small group of people to become radicalized or even heavily anti-Semitic in their behavior is super fucking bad. And we should try to address that responsibly and discourage it.
Because
Without acting like it's this binary, either he's going to get the next
But
Hitler. into the
I'm not
White
saying
House
it's a
or he's not.
binary. I'm saying people are being hysterical, which I think they
maybe
are.
some
But I'm
people are,
happy.
but
Yeah.
I'm happy
the
to
thing
say,
is, there
yeah,
undoubtedly
it's
an element
troubling
to
or
which,
whatever.
like,
Yeah.
tens of millions
Yeah,
of people
to
who'd
be
never
honest, I don't
heard
really
of
think that,
Alex
like-
Jones or whoever are now watching or have watched some Alex Jones content who had never heard of the guy. And I
He's
think
not a
that's this
Nazi.
as well.
He's also not anti-Semitic.
Saying Alex Jones isn't anti-Semitic.
He's not anti-Semitic. What has he said? That's
Fucking-
what has he
Yeah,
said
the
that's
thing is,
anti-Semitic?
He doesn't look like it.
Wait, what has he said that's anti-Semitic?
I
That
didn't say
George
he was.
Soros is creating half human, half pig hybrids in a lab to rule the world.
That's pretty mainline for what. Hold on, that's not because of like the Jewish thing. That's just like pretty mainline for what Alex Jones believes like about everything. Anybody in Alex Jones's brain, anybody in power is like part of some kind of like deep level
hold
like
on,
deep
Lexi,
state,
Yeah,
right?
Alex
You're
Jones
wrong, though.
explicitly
Hold
said,
on.
okay,
Am I wrong?
You know, there is
Okay.
a Jewish
wait, I'll
mafia,
explain.
and they do
Well,
control
here, Doobie, you
a
explain.
ton
Yeah.
of them.
Also, I don't really buy into this idea people don't know who Alex Jones are. Alex Jones is a pretty famous person, all things considered. I don't know what the polling is on it off the top of my head, but like also.
Not that, well, he's an internet figure, so there'd be lots of people who would never have heard of him. I can't give you exact numbers.
I mean,
but there
he
will be
was
millions of
involved in a
people,
pretty
potentially.
big defamation case. I'm taking this point shamelessly from my chat. I'm throwing it out there. Queeman, thank you for this one. But yeah, he was involved in a very public defamation case, and which was, he lied about kids getting shot at school, and he got done for $1 billion for it. I think people are kind of looking at him, if they don't know who he is, and going, "This Alex Jones guy seems like bad news." And they might think he's a bit reasonable for the EA stuff, but I think the overwhelming perception of Alex Jones is pretty negative.
Wait, Doobie, can you explain why I'm wrong?
Yeah, so George Soros specifically is somebody that's well known in right wing circles because he's a billionaire who's given hundreds of millions of dollars to progressive causes through his Open Societies Foundation. That's why they don't target him because he's Jewish. In fact, one of the biggest criticisms of George Soros is that when he was like 14, he went around with his his protector guy who's because it was in Nazi Germany, or was it Poland? I think it was Poland. And the guy was like harboring him, telling people that he was Christian, etc., so that he wouldn't be carted off to the concentration camp.
He's Hungarian.
This is kind of
Sure. So
immaterial,
wait,
right?
no,
It
stop.
feels like
No,
you're-
it's not immaterial. It's not immaterial. Stop.
Okay.
So one of the main criticisms is that he helped sell out other Jews, when he was a child, right? So to link their criticism of his political activity, when he has hundreds of millions of dollars of political activity for decades, to link that to his Jewishness is actually anti-Semitic on your part. 'Cause he doesn't do
True.
that. Alex Jones never does that.
Wait, hang on. So when Kanye West said the Jews run everything in the media and they control everything, and then Alex Jones turns to him and says, "Oh, I don't believe that," but George Soros is doing everything, which is literally what he fucking did. Literally the next sentence out of Alex Jones's mouth linked George Soros as the person who runs everything.
Do you think
That's
Alex
got
Jones
nothing to
wasn't
do with his Judaism?
explicitly clear again and again and again that he's not an anti-Semite, that he
He's
loves
covered
the
his
Jewish
ass
people,
many times.
that
I
he's not
understand.
pro
Yeah, he's a
Hitler, that
lying
he's not a
bastard.
Nazi, etc.,
There's
etc.
a Jewish
You're the one
prophet
that's linking his
that was
criticism of George Soros to his Jewishness.
Jones is a liar, but when he says he's not a Alex Jones is a liar, but when he says he's not an anti-Semite, we should believe him. Base take.
How should I know that you're not a Nazi?
You shouldn't.
Okay,
You
so
should
I'm
take-
right now. I
you should
think
take the
you're
way
a
I
Nazi,
behave.
actually
You should
undermining the
take-
Jewish perspective in this
You
conversation.
should take the
to make
way I
yourself look really
behave and
fucking
the
bad
arguments I
and push
over
Jewish
time,
conspiracy theory.
and you should not listen to the words I say. You should take my totality behavior.
Great. So if we take the totality of Alex Jones' behavior, right, and his years of criticizing George Soros, when has he ever linked that to his Jewishness and criticized George Soros
Literally
as part of some
just
Jewish
after
cabal?
Kanye West said that the Jews
That
run
was not the
everything.
context. I watched that
Was
fucking
exactly
interview
the
too.
fucking
Yeah, I
said
watched the
same
interview.
lying prick.
He said, as a follow-up to that statement, he referred to Soros as part of a Jewish mafia, which exerts a tremendous amount of control on U.S. politics. That was what Alex Jones
Alex
said.
Jones said that? That's pretty
It's
bad.
super helpful to quibble over whether or not Alex Jones is a Semite. An anti-Semite. Like, yeah, there's a
It's
difference
almost
between dog whistling and saying Hitler good, go
It's
fucking
almost
like.
like Doobie's running a cover here for anti-Semitic bullshit. or
Doobie
something. That's
is
crazy.
making an
Ooh.
argument of
I think you guys are
apologize, like,
afraid
What an
intentionally
allegation.
apologizing for
with the
dog
truth
whistling
behind the
and
anti-Semitic
equating it to
bullshit,
what
right?
Kanye's
So
Truth
Kanye,
behind the
Kanye,
anti-Semitic
so
bullshit.
Kanye
Apologies.
Kanye clearly
He's not
goes
anti-Semitic,
into like
Doobie.
Holocaust
He's just telling
denial
the
and some
truth
kind of
about
nonsense.
anti-Semitism. Yeah.
No, but we already went through this. So obviously Kanye goes through some crazy shit, right? He goes into like Holocaust denial, which is ridiculous. This idea that there's some kind of cabal like that's keeping black and brown people down and white people down, et cetera, right? They're like satanic or whatever the fuck. Obviously that's bullshit. But at the core of this, there's a nugget of truth, which is that Jews are overrepresented in positions of power. Well, listen, this is where this
You're
comes from.
amazing.
Your
I mean,
reaction
this is key,
contributes to it.
Kevin. This is
Your
important.
reaction
Let him go.
contributes to it, right? The nugget of truth is
No,
that they are
we're the ones doing
overrepresented,
anti-Semitism.
and that when
Tell us
people
about
try
the
to
JQ,
talk
right,
about
go
this
on.
the same way that they would about white people
Yes.
being overrepresented in,
I
in
agree.
corporate
The
positions.
real problem is
right?
we need to
Please
focus
stop.
on less
Please
Jews in
stop.
One man.
Hollywood.
Please stop. Please shut up.
Yes.
So when people try to speak about this, about concentrations of Jewish power in the United States, just the way that
Concentrations of Jewish
the same
power.
way that lefties would talk about concentrations of white power in the United States, right? They're shut down. They're not allowed
Maybe
to
maybe
talk
you want to
about the
set
Jews.
up camps.
The same
Or
way-
white
the same way
supremacy.
that People talk
Right.
about white people.
Huh?
Or white supremacy,
you
or
wanna
or,
talk
or
about
men,
that?
or
Let's be
male
honest,
supremacy.
Jews on
What would-
average are much
I have
more
a question
educated
for
and much
you.
more
Did you
wealthy
wanna
than white
talk
Can I
people.
ask a
One
question?
at a time.
Right.
One at a time,
Okay,
please.
I can sort this all out. This is the problem. You ask a question, you need to ask two things, right? Why do you think it is like that? And number two, what should we do about it? Okay. So, for example, black crime statistics. If you ask a racist Nazi dude, right, black people are overrepresented in crime. Why is that? They'll say it's because black people are more biologically determinate to commit crime, and we should like murder black people or whatever, fucking put them in a camp, whatever it is, right? So obviously that's the wrong way to look at it as a progressive. But if they were to say it's because of socioeconomic explanation, and we should improve their lot in life through social programs or whatever, well then, you know, that's fine. And so it would do the same thing with this. You would ask someone, why do you think it is and what should we do? If someone says it's because Jewish people are evil cabal and we should stop Jewish people or something, yeah, obviously that's the wrong
Well,
way.
what
But
is
if it's
the
like,
answer other than that?
Hang on, I
Well,
know.
let's ask.
no,
Hey,
just-
stop,
the
stop,
answer-
all of you.
the answer
stop.
is we don't need
Let's
to do
ask
anything
him. We
about
have
it.
him right
We
here.
don't
We have
need
him
to
right
do
here.
anything about it.
F-bombs,
Which
please,
why do we
please.
keep asking
F-bombs,
about
please.
it?
But if we don't need to
please.
do anything about it,
Shut-
why?
okay,
okay.
I will, guys. Let's ask him. So, Doobie, if you
Yes.
think that is the case, to Chud's point, what do you think we should do about it?
I have a solution.
God
So-
damn
Oh,
it.
for
Don't-
God's
don't
sake,
be
Doobie,
weird.
please, you're
I
not
will
making it
kick you.
easier,
No,
mate.
calm
Why'd you have
down,
to say that
listen,
for?
Listen, there's a solution to this problem. The lefties have already discovered it with other issues, i.e., in California, when we discovered, hey, these corporate positions at the top, lots of white men, right? We don't want we want other voices involved here, other perspectives. So we're going to give affirmative action programs, but also we're going to incentivize businesses to bring in other groups of people into their corporate structures. I think you should do the same thing in Hollywood, the same thing in the news media. Bring in other groups, other perspectives. Right? You don't need
Oh
to
my
fucking
God, that
do
is
anything beyond that.
beautiful.
Hang on,
This
so
is where
let's-
leftism leads, right?
The same kind
I
of
love it.
programs, the same kind of programs you guys push for other sectors
I
where
love
it's
it.
like
I'm
dominated,
sure you
dominated by white
support all
men.
those
Do the
programs.
same shit here.
I'm sure you support all those programs to help marginalized
Yeah,
people.
I do.
Just like you support the program to
I'm
help
not a
all the
Republican.
marginalized non-Hollywood Jews.
Wait.
Just-
Hold on. I want to make this
I-
like really
I think
confusing.
Doobie definitely
Okay, so
has a
just to be
solution
clear,
to this problem.
your
That's why
actual
affirmative action is
solution, and
bad.
you're not joking, is to institute to seek institutional power
action.
to reduce the Jewish
Right to power.
representation in Hollywood media and finance.
No,
You
look,
want
the
the state
Doobie
to enact
I want
reduction of
an
has an
affirmative
answer.
action program, just
participation in these
like
spaces.
to
That's
He has an
fucking
answer to
promote
the
diversity,
concentration of
to
Jewish
promote
Holy shit,
diversity,
dude,
to
no,
promote
just like the term
diversity
solution wasn't
in the
ironic.
corporate positions of these companies, just like we do in other industries, in other
Doobie, do
sectors
you
of
want
the
to set
economy
up
that are
maybe
dominated by
some
white
sort
men?
of camps for the
Don't
concentration
be
of Jewish
ridiculous.
power?
Why
You
is
know
it
what?
why is
We
this a
need to
problem
ins-
for
we
you?
need to
I don't
see
understand.
the government
This is
to
your
to
position.
reduce the
Right? This
number
is what
of
lefties
black
push
people in the
about when they
NBA.
say,
They have
hey, there are lots of
monopolized
white men
the
at the top of
NBA.
these
We need more
ladders.
white people.
What do we do
And
about this? Oh shit, we need diversity. And I agree, we do need diversity. I want
Right,
diversity.
Doobie, listen, stop arguing with. Okay, can I just ask you, right? I'm going to say this: affirmative action is really stupid. We should get rid of it. Okay, so what do you think?
Right.
What's your answer to me? What should it be to me then? Do you think would you argue the same
I-
thing, even though I disagree with affirmative action?
Well, I would just outvote you. I think you're wrong. I think the benefits.
Well, what I'm
of
saying, do you
affirmative action
genuinely
are-
think this is a thing, or are you just arguing it as a troll? I
Yeah.
can't tell at this point.
No, I think this.
He's
I
for
think
real.
this is like a massive issue. In lots of ways that we don't even think about. So there's like this meme about all the Holocaust movies that get made or whatever, right? But you don't hear much about other genocides. And I think one of the reasons for that is the people that are occupying the positions of power in these specific sectors, right, have a history of their family getting murdered in the fucking Holocaust. So these are the stories that they want to promote. These are the stories they want to tell, right? But you don't hear
Tell us about all the other genocides. Tell us about the
genocides
Fred. Go on.
in fucking Cambodia or in Indonesia or in any of these other places that have happened much more recently, right? So, and you don't hear about these things because the people that
Did it
with
involve-
those
But
stories.
World War
and
II
their
is a
family history-
cultural phenomenon. World War II is a cultural phenomenon. All the video games are about fucking World War II because it's such an interesting point in history for people. And as
That's just that
horrible it
it's a
is to
global
say,
conflict that
I
affected
don't
all
think
the
I don't think that's
countries.
it though. Hold on. I
It's
think that's
Indonesia
one thing,
affected
but I also
Indonesia.
think that when the people that are in a position to promote stories or to say, hey, this movie's gonna get made, this story's gonna get told versus that other story, have a history of like a direct familial contact with this event where their family was murdered for being Jewish. I think they're gonna want to push those stories, and I think that's okay. I don't fault them for that, but I think that we should get other perspectives involved. So other stories.
I'll
can
tell
get
you what,
told, too.
Doobie, go and
what about
why
me about the
don't
white
we get
genocide,
social-
Doobie? I'm sure you'd love that one, wouldn't you,
stop.
mate?
We need to get some more people in here. Portland's been dying. Portland's gonna die unless he gets a chance to speak. and then we
Portland's
got
already
Laxway.
dead. It's been burnt to the
Yes.
ground by the Antifas.
There.
Portland, go
It's
ahead.
true. This is actually one of the last remaining buildings. It looks nice in here, but it's the remains of a burned down Kmart. So I am gonna
Is this why
make
you
my
opened up
point.
talking about how afraid you are of uneducated black people?
Yeah,
Oh my
it's exactly
fucking
why.
God.
Now I'm much more afraid
Nice.
of Doobie gaining institutional power and using it to actually remove Jews from their wealth and their positions of influence because Jesus Christ, man. I mean, how is that a realistic position to hold? I don't know that you would make this argument for any other scenario in any other context than to troll me. But holy shit, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm still kind of hung up on that. Do you really think that that's a reasonable solution? Or are you just fucking around, man? Can you?
I think you're an idiot. So California has instituted
Yeah,
something
no,
like this
you're a
very
fucking
recently.
dipshit.
Hold on,
Clearly giving you way too much credit.
California has instituted a policy almost exactly like this, like recently. I think in the last couple of years, right, where they said, "Hey, we want to promote diversity in the corporate structures. So to do this, we're going to require that that people from this group or that group are in your board if you have a corporation in California." This is a policy that is on the books right now, being enacted right now. So to say that adding Jews to the list of people would be like among the dominant like white people in these boards that we'd like to
They're
diversify.
white people.
You're
though.
not
Are you-
talking about
Hold on,
making
hold
them
on, wait,
have
stop,
representative
hold on,
fucking
stop,
boards. You're talking
shh,
about
shh.
taking
Let
away
me
their
finish.
ownership of property. You're
What are you
talking about
talking about?
removing their
Wait,
No,
power.
that's not what he
when
said.
we
That's
push
what
to
you said.
diversify, hold on, when we push to diversify corporate boards and
No,
lower the
you were
amount of
talking about
white
ownership.
dominance and
They
white
own the
supremacy.
media, remember? They're not
Listen,
on too many
listen,
boards.
listen,
They
listen,
own
listen,
them.
listen, listen.
Well,
So
say
when we
something
talk
worth
about
fucking listening to. This is the dumbest argument I've ever heard.
when we talk about dismantling structures of white supremacy by diversifying corporations, by diversifying the leadership of these companies, and having less white people and more people of other races, is
This
this
is
an
fucking
attack? Is this
coke,
like a racist
dude.
attack
No,
on white
Bullshit.
people? Of course it's
Doobie,
not.
did you say that Jewish people are white? A second ago.
No, I'm saying that they should be considered among the privileged dominant group, right?
At
Like
least
white
white
people.
presenting.
Yeah, well, in the United States, it's true that Jews are typically
Okay.
more well educated than white people,
I-
wealthier than white people.
I
So
wanna-
I
I wanna
don't see
get-
how they're an
hey,
oppressed class in the
I'm
United
Stop!
so
States.
I
I
stop,
will agree
stop.
about
glad
the
you
better
come out as a
educated.
Jew
I want to
supremacist.
get Lactoid in because Lactoid's been trying, and then I'll let you guys start again. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I hate I dislike affirmative action. I think it's a terrible program. But I think Doobie is the only one applying it consistently. And I think it's telling that when Doobie applies it consistently, really the only reaction is just outrage. And
Wait, I didn't say I was against it.
hold on, the reaction is just like general outrage. And the other reaction is
Mockery.
the other reaction is like why would you be this is a ridiculous policy? Why would you advocate against like taking away Jews like power and influence away from them? Like this
Mockery.
is
We're
insane.
mocking the idea. It's
So
stupid.
but none of you mock the idea of like American colleges like disproportionately disfavoring Asian applicants, right? Like that was supported. Affirmative action is like overwhelmingly supported among the left. And when Doobie says, well, you guys do this for Asians, you do this for like white people to a much lesser extent, right? It's mostly Asians, but to white people, yes. And he's saying, well, we should also do this to men. And he's saying we should do it for like Jews too. Like the immediate reaction is like, oh, anti-Semitism.
Jewish is not a racial group, is it? Jewish is not a racial.
Yeah, neither is man or woman, but like affirmative action isn't strictly
Jewish is not
limited.
gender either.
It's an
How are you
ethnicity.
going to define that? Yeah,
You
it is an
definitely
ethnicity,
should limit the
absolutely.
number of Christians on top
Well,
of things.
it's a
Though.
series of names.
It's an
When Doobie talks
sure.
about their influence
Wait, what
in
kind of
media,
point was that? It's not a race, so it's not like counted in affirmative
ownership
action?
of media companies, not
it's
their
more difficult to do,
representation on
yes.
boards and in offices. Their ownership of these companies is the problem that needs to be corrected. How do you correct an overrepresentation in ownership of an industry without either compelling that industry to add more actors that the market doesn't naturally make space for, or taking the property of the people who already own it and fucking giving it
Portland.
to other people?
That's what we
Portland,
do
if I may ask,
currently.
just real quick, Portland, if I may ask, do you think it would be a good thing or a bad thing if more prominent Black individuals owned their own businesses?
Obviously, it'd be a good thing.
So we should try to incentivize that somehow, right? If we can.
Yeah.
Well, I say
And
let Doobie make his
there's,
fucking weird.
And there's your
Genocide
answer.
Movie.
Oh,
Go for it.
So wait a minute. So
Stopping him.
your answer isn't to incentivize other minority groups to be able to compete with Jewish media companies when you say we need to balance out the amount of representation. You're saying that you can only have
Can I just
so much representation in that space, even if that's not what the market demands.
Also,
So
can I just
you're-
point out that there's a difference?
I agree, the market should
Jewish
dictate it.
Media groups.
the market has already dictated it. In the
It
game.
hasn't.
One.
It has
Logan
not.
in. Let Logan in. Let Logan have his
Okay.
say. Let
Okay.
Logan have his say. Go ahead, Logan.
I just I dislike the phrase Jewish media groups or whatever, because people owning shares in a company is not the same as people directing news. That's a completely different set of things. And again, overwhelmingly, the people running news organizations are not Jewish people. Okay, owning shares does not mean you're literally dictating whether Tucker Carlson has a show or whether some leftist has a show. Look, that's being done by non-Jewish people predominantly.
Right, listen, I think that you know, the diversity thing, I think it was always an imperfect solution. No, that sounds bad. I don't mean diversity generally. I just mean this affirmative action. I think it was always a you know, a plaster over like systemic issues which have existed. I think that hopefully we can find other ways to like diversify that aren't as forced and don't seemingly maybe exclude people. Like the Asian thing is a good example of that. So, you know, I don't know if this affirmative action thing has got any legs from my perspective. You know, if there is this overrepresentation, I think maybe there's other ways to deal with it. But also, I
How
guess
would
the other
you deal
problem
with
as
it, Fred?
well. Well,
How would
I
you
don't know
deal
if I've
with
got an
it?
answer. I don't know if I've got an answer for that. But I want to say this though. I think that one of the issues is that black people have struggled because historically they've been excluded, and I think that Jewish people, you know, there has been a history of anti-Semitism there too. Whereas I think that white people being in certain positions are not because they've been excluded; it's because they've had like, you know, predominant power or whatever. But then the reality still exists today. Maybe there's another way to deal with it. But I just think there's an important difference to make there. That there's a different reason that people are in certain positions that is worth bearing in mind when we're analysing this.
That's absolutely true, yeah. And also, when black people have done well for themselves, like in the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, white people went and burnt the fucking place down and destroyed.
What about Asians, right? Who came here like overwhelmingly poor and you know, worked their way up, and now are being openly discriminated against by American universities by a policy that is
bad,
openly
yeah.
backed by the left wing. That's not like a
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
bad, dude.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
What you want?
Well, I mean, hey,
Point.
Well,
so
I mean,
I'm
listen-
glad that you say it's bad, but like Doobie's simply like, and I disagree with Doobie because I think all affirmative action is bad, right? But Doobie's simply arguing like a very consistent
Well, it's a
point.
disingenuous, not necessarily
It's
from
not
you, but say
disingenuous.
from Doobie. It's definitely
why
a
is it
disingenuous point
disingenuous?
because he doesn't care
Yeah,
about like
Doobie's like-
Jewish people from the perspective of wanting fairness. He just wants to attack Jewish people.
Why would you wait? Hold on. Why would you think that?
Because you're a Nazi little prick, mate.
I'm not a
Obviously, what the
Nazi.
fuck are you
Hold on.
talking about?
So
You
I
started off.
present-
Your
I
intro was
present, I
JQ.
present
Fuck
reasons
you.
for you. I think pretty clear reasons, right? That we should think that this group or any grouping overrepresented in certain power structures could be a problem.
Certain
And
power
I present
structures, yeah.
well-liked
Words a bit softer,
mainstream
mate.
mainstream leftist solutions for that problem, and you call me a Nazi? That's ridiculous.
The sincerity in your voice is
Are you
adorable. I
like
can,
are you
see
like
Well,
it.
are you like an
he's
I can
anti-white
see
really
it.
racist?
hard, isn't he?
But
This
are
is
people
so-
are people who are
it's so
concerned about
adorable.
white supremacy or systemic racism in the United States like anti-white racist now?
I'm sure you would say they were.
It's
in
adorable.
private,
Well, of
at
course you're not
least.
going to respond
would.
because you're a fucking baboon and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You can't respond to anything I'm
Jesus.
saying.
Let's
Because you're just memeing, mate. Look, why am I supposed to respond seriously?
Okay,
to
yeah,
you
I'm
at
just
all?
memeing. Yeah, of course, it's all a joke. Whatever.
So
Yes,
one
the
more.
big question. Yeah, you weren't memeing, but the big thing you inserted into your open to make sure this exact thing that we're doing right now happened was the JQ when talking about the effects of Kanye and Nick. Like literally, the idea you're not memeing about this for this purpose. That's hilarious. Like, I mean,
Wait,
the
hold
fact
on.
that you can't be genuine
can you-
about you
Can you
did this
spell out why you think
intentionally.
I'm memeing, especially
You're
like
drawing this
specific?
really dishonest parallel between participation and ownership, where you're saying that like Jewish ownership is a problem here, so we should enact the same legislative means that we do to correct overrepresentation
You're
in
not paying
like
attention.
access and
While,
participation.
while
in
the
things
topic
like
is
school.
What are the reasons?
Wait,
what are the
wait,
reasons?
hold on, real quick. This is actually something like so. Portland. Here's another thing that happens. So currently, in either most or all, I don't think it's all. I think it's most areas of the United States. There's programs in place in which public funds are used to boost like women-owned businesses or like minority-owned businesses. There's federal funds for this purpose, and so quite literally, what's happening is through taxation, you are removing wealth from like everybody, and then you're giving wealth to like a specific demographic. So it is a wealth transfer. You are literally transferring ownership. You are transferring wealth from like other people into one demographic. Like if Doobie could, like if he was following like the crazy ideology, which apparently he does, that you guys follow, he could simply advocate for like just the same thing, but like as it comes to, like to Jewish people. So like
But
everybody pays into taxes, and everybody who's non-Jewish has access to these like federal funds.
Lactoid.
Doobie
I-
could
I-
argue
I-
that
I understand what you're saying. I want to engage with this really quickly and then promise somebody else can go.
it's
There's a
stealing.
big difference between encouraging participation and discouraging participation using institutional means. There is
There is no difference in a zero-sum game.
Yes,
I
there
asked
It's not a
absolutely-
zero sum.
It is when you're taking money from somebody and giving it to one demographic. That you're literally moving money. Like that's all Doobie's advocating for, and you guys support that. You shouldn't.
You're
You're a libertarian.
You're assuming the out of
Yes, of
government
course, yeah.
access to those things are equal before the government access. And you know they're not. You know the access to finance.
I'm not saying they are in the same way like Jewish people disproportionately hold
So
ownership
the
over things.
government-
It's also not equal
so
before what Doobie's
so
proposing.
Your argument literally is the government leveling the playing field is the real problem.
That's what Doobie's advocating for, and you guys don't like it because it's anti-Semitic, apparently.
No,
I just
you-
asked, how did
Okay,
these
I think
decisions-
one of the
Yes,
issues with this
yes.
position as well is like, you know, there's often like a group that is, you know, positively impacted and the group that's impacted. So white people having this position of power has historically, at least, you know, been at the detriment of black people for a number of reasons. That is absolutely better than it was. But if we're saying Jewish people are being like positively affected, are we just saying that it's all non-Jewish people that are going to benefit from this? Like traditionally, it's a marginalized group that is specifically marginalized that would benefit from this. It's like you're looking at the negative marginalized people and giving a benefit to them to push them forward.
One of the
But in
metrics
this
here
instance-
is like a measurement of economic power and like looking at disproportionate like
Disparate
influence in
results
certain
of
areas.
different groupings was brought about by largely government intervention in the first place. And realistically, if you just level the playing field and let everyone start from a fresh thing, blah, 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 that means that the people who are already rich are going to stay rich. The only way to correct a government created problem, unfortunately, in the long term, is a government solution.
Because here's the thing, right? If it was an
and that's-
argument and it was
and
like,
that's
you
what
know,
I'm
there's a lot
saying
of
is that disproportionate Jewish participation isn't because of some systemic issue that needs to be corrected. There are things that need to be.
It is
corrected
systemic.
because
Hey, lactoid. No, bad. You gotta let him
Wait,
speak.
why is it?
You gotta let him speak. You gotta let him
Just-
finish. Okay.
okay.
I'm saying that because I was paid to, right? Someone gave me a sub to get you. So,
Oh,
you're
okay.
right, but anyway.
Oh,
go ahead.
Soros
Use of
stolen that
capitalism.
money again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent exercise of voting with your dollars.
True.
So there's a huge difference between using institutional power to correct institutional mistakes and using institutional power to discourage a minority group from participation in or ownership within an industry or a group. There is just something like the government's role is to correct its own inappropriate actions. But one of the functions of government should be to address playing fields that were made unequal by its own systemic invention. So you have things like affirmative action that are an attempt to correct that balance that was created by government apparatuses. But Jewish people having capital and exercising their capital as like in the form of ownership in certain companies, that is just the free market operating the way that you guys would probably fucking say that you want
That's
it
not
to.
true.
So they're just better. They're
It's
just
not
better
that-
than the
No,
rest of
that's
us.
That's
So
just
I would
not
argue-
true.
I would argue
Historically,
it's not
the
free
reason
market. It's the reason that Jewish people went into banking. Historically, for instance,
is government
because of,
action.
because of the fact that Christians were not allowed to borrow money for profit because of usury laws that used to exist. Well, used to be enforced. They still technically exist in the
Government
Bible.
action.
Because and so Jewish people were essentially forced into this situation, and that's how that came to be. So that's why there's like a disproportionate number of Jewish people in banking, and therefore they get a lot of money because everything's been financialized.
So government. So government action.
We need to know as well.
Because the way they went
So
about it.
government action did it.
So, wait a second. Affirmative action normally refers to where there's like a finite amount of jobs, right? And then obviously the issue is apparently, you know, white people are getting precedence, and the affirmative action thing is supposed to be, hey, you know, let's give black people a shot by trying to reverse that a bit. I think it's an imperfect solution, don't get me wrong, but it's different in the movie industry. In the movie industry, it's not like there's a finite amount of movies that can ever be made. It's just that, yeah, maybe we do want other people to tell their stories. So if minorities get some funding to tell of their Holocaust from their past, I think that would be, you know, an interesting thing to do. Because the reality is, you know, like WASP Americans, like there isn't really like a genocide like that I don't think would need to speak of per se. I think it would be, you know, say
But
Slavic
black and
people.
white people kissing in adverts, and that's white genocide. Well, what more do
But
you
like
want?
Slavic,
Sure,
if you had
come
some
on.
Slavic people come forward and it was like, right, we're going to tell the story of this genocide here that happened in like an Eastern European country or something like that, I think that'd be really interesting, and I'd be up for that.
Doobie's
That's
disingenuous,
that could be the
because
detriment.
he doesn't care about making a movie about the Indonesian genocide. He's just annoyed that the Holocaust gets pushed too much for his liking.
Oh my
That's
God.
it.
That's
Can I ask you a
ridiculous.
question, Doobie?
You know.
Actually,
What do you think of
Go
Schindler's
and
List,
go make
Doobie?
your Filipino
Schindler's List.
genocide movie, Doobie. Go
What do you think
and
of
do it,
Schindler's
mate.
List,
No,
Doobie?
Schindler's List is really good. My
Okay,
favorite
okay.
is the pianist though. It's really
the
good.
pianist. Okay, not the
Yeah,
pianist.
the
The
pianist.
pianist.
Oh,
No,
the
no,
pianist.
pianist.
Okay.
Okay, the pianist.
It's
Got
a
you.
good movie. What do you
I
laughing
have a question for you, Doobie, if I may.
I thought you said
right?
penis.
Yeah, the
I
sequel's
also
about
thought he
Hunter.
said penis, but we'll put
Didn't
Hunter
realise there
Biden
was a
aside
dick
for a minute,
genocide.
right? We'll put
Mm.
Hunter Biden aside for the moment, and we'll ask Doobie a direct question here, right? So when you talk about this, right, one of the problems, at least one of the accusations of what white people do when they have ownership of a thing is they get other white people to the exclusion of minorities, and they actively seek white people out to hire. That's an accusation, at least. Do you think the same thing is happening in the movie industry or in the banking industry, that Jewish people are exclusively seeking out their own kind, quote unquote? Is that your contention? Is that what you're
Not,
actually
I
saying
wouldn't
is
say I
happening?
wouldn't say exclusively, but there's absolutely nepotism in these industries, right? And if you have
Nepotism in every
which is
industry.
But sure, aren't Jewish people just seeking
out?
out that which can make the most
Wait,
money?
hold on,
Is that not
but
what they're
that's-
hiring for?
Yeah, hold on.
Doobie.
Wait 1 second, please. I'll answer your question really quickly. So I agree somehow with KF Logan, right? So there is nepotism in all industries, right? So it's not surprising that this group, which has a history of like oppression, would prefer to keep to lift up people from their group. That's totally reasonable. I
say
understand that.
There's
I
nepotism
don't
on
think
Twitch as well.
they're evil for doing this.
I just
I
want
think
to
this
clear.
is just like this is something that like humans
There's-
would do. Hey,
there's nepotism
if
on
my group's
Twitch as
been
well.
oppressed, if we're all going to the
Don't
same
think the only
clubs
reason
and the
beardy
same
fuckers
synagogue
like
or
me and
whatever,
Chud get on
I'm
this
going to want to
panel.
lift up people from my group. That's
Embarrassing.
okay.
Wait, are you accusing me, KF Logan, of being pro beer to the
Yes.
exclusion of
Pro-
others?
pro
Wow.
white people
Okay.
with beards. It's an
Jesus.
outrage.
Now,
Well, actually, for a long time, it was conservative affirmative action because all the conservatives were schizoids who couldn't follow TOS. So you got these fucking no-name fucks coming all the time. Obviously, you know,
three- there were
don't
three
talk about
I've
lactoid
enjoyed
that
talking
way.
to you. I'm not
Ouch.
meaning
Don't
this.
talk about lactoid.
not
Shut
about you.
logic.
Don't
That was
talk about
mean.
I'm
lactoid.
not talking
Lactoid
about
has been
you. I
kind
mean in the
enough.
past.
Lactoid has been
The
kind
other
enough
ones,
to
the
come
other
on my
ones.
channel
Lactoid drives you
today.
based, okay?
You don't need to call him no name. We all know it. We
Yeah,
all know it.
every-
It
No, no,
doesn't
I'm not
matter.
talking about
I
Lactoid.
provide
I'm talking
critical
about aircraft.
diverse representation. Okay, I need
I'm
to be
talking about
here.
The aircraft sparkies and stuff. Although sometimes you watch my
each
stream and
week
it'll
on
be too
Hippy
hard.
Dippy, there were the three conservatives who wouldn't say the N word on stream, and they always got to these panels.
Oh.
Anyway, let's go back to the Yi thing because I think we're getting off the specific kind of
You
prompt
think?
here, right? A
Oh
little
yeah,
bit,
we talking about
just a
yay?
tad.
Fuck, I forgot.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, right? But my contention here is like, how I guess the overall question is how much does extremist rhetoric actually move the needle, and is there a level of extremist rhetoric that can absolutely destroy the credibility of a movement or an organization? Like one of the reasons initially that a lot of the alt-right started with dog whistles is because they knew that if they were direct about it, they would lose all their support. Kanye can be accused of many things, but dog whistling is not one of the things he can be accused of, right? So
Yes,
in that
exactly.
with that said, right? Like how do we square the circle? Like how do we square the circle that his just saying it out loud and being blunt about it is actually going to increase the support in America to any significantly statistically significant degree, right? Like for Nazis or fascists or authoritarians in general.
Well, I mean, obviously, well, I say obviously, I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense. You spent the last few years saying the alt-right are so dangerous because they obfuscate their views, which, I got some agreement with. But now we're saying, well, actually, no, just openly saying I love Hitler and the Holocaust didn't happen. That is actually going to increase Nazism. It's like incoherent. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, no, because surely the point of hiding their power level was that eventually they wouldn't need to necessarily hide their power level. And Kanye
Well,
might have gone,
no.
It's now the
They
time.
clearly still need to.
After Charlottesville, they
I
were
think he's
fucking.
wrong, but I think that was his calculation. I think maybe. I don't know.
You really
Okay,
think
wait.
Kanye?
You think he calculated this? This was a calculated delivery.
Oh, no. I think Nick Fuentes. No, I think Nick Fuentes is doing a calculation, and I think that Kanye's his little cockboy going along for the ride, basically.
Nick Fuentes wants exposure. He's not interested in like political power. He knows that this is fucking sinking the ship. There's no way he's going to get anywhere with this shit. But he's fucking, he's on Alex Jones. People are talking about him in newspapers. Funnily enough, polling on him, 53% didn't have an opinion on him, presumably because they didn't know who the fuck he was. Which
True,
is
but
quite interesting.
if he's got the ear of the former president, who might be president again at some point in the not too distant future, although hopefully not.
Trump will not legislate in a way.
Real quick, am I incorrect that Trump had to distance himself from that? Like Trump ran away from that and said, "Oh, I didn't know who this fucker was."
He said there were good people on both sides.
Okay, no, wait.
That's not what he said here.
Trump was the alt-right's guy, but if you look at how he legislated, he made a lot of decisions that the alt-right were in opposition to, because guess what? The institutions of fucking, liberal society, they're the things that truly control what happens, okay? And,
Not just that, but Trump doesn't have an ideological bone in his body. He'll say anything to get elected. He didn't care.
I'd agree, but I think
He's also not anti-Semitic at all.
It's also, but it's really important to look. I agree with what Chud's saying, that like the institutions of the United States proved surprisingly resilient when Trump was in office, but that doesn't mean that he didn't spend 4 years working actively to erode them, and that he isn't now in a position where he's able to exploit that by fucking an entire legion of people in lower levels of government that are willing to do things to advance his agenda should he become part of another election, controversy and stuff. Like there's a slow effect to this kind of, like, Kanye is a really, really uniquely popular figure in American history, and particularly in Black American history. For a time in, I think, 2020, he was the richest Black man on earth, or at least the richest African American who's ever lived. And the amount of cultural influence that he was able to amass over a 20-year music career took a decidedly more conservative and religious bend over the course of like several years before it converted to this blatant and overt anti-Semitism.
He also lost everything too. That's important to know.
He wanted to call his 2018 album Hitler. He literally floated that as an idea.
I think
it's even a shit name for an album.
Terrible name for an album. But I think the important thing is, he had all this power, he had all this influence. But the critical element here is once he started going down this arc, he lost it all. I think that's the important part, and that indicates here.
Yeah,
he has lost like the vast majority of it. What does he have left? They took away his bank account.
He lives in a fucking mansion, my dude. Like he's not on the streets.
I get it. He has like some money like remaining, but like his influence and power is removed by magnitudes. Like he's not like the most powerful person.
A lot of that is by his own doing. He spent years breaking
he made a tweet
from the mainstream infrastructure of like music distribution. He didn't even release his last album on anything other than that fucking stem player thing. The reality is this guy still has an enormous following that's easily monetizable in 1,000 different ways. He may not be the richest man in his cultural demographic to ever exist anymore, but he still has a legion of followers that he can monetize through his music, and he can monetize in 100 different ways online.
But can he radicalize them? Can he radicalize
by telling them that some of them,
it doesn't work
for
that
sure,
way.
some small number of them at least, especially if you have a demographic of people like his main demographic is 16 to 24-year-olds. These aren't the most politically educated people on earth, and they're not the most politically active. They're not like responsive to.
I think Kanye West's biggest cultural achievement, I think, is that he proves black supremacy correct, because he is now the leading Nazi on earth, and he's a black man. The whites
also not the only person.
That title.
He's also not the only person within that, category of extremely successful black self-built billionaires and millionaires that are advocating for the same kind of messaging right
now. There's polling here that just doesn't really back up. Well, I mean, maybe if you want to argue, but the polling that I'm looking at here, which is from early December, says that even amongst the black community, there's a preponderance of black people that have an unfavorable opinion of him. 48% versus 26%, which had a favorable perspective. 7% of which was very favorable, and 19% was somewhat favorable. So I think
but let's say it's 7%. If those 7% go on to do weird Nazi shit, isn't that a problem?
What percentage of that is gonna go do weird Nazi shit?
I mean, anyone doing any weird Nazi shit.
I'm just saying, hypothetically, you could pick any.
Of course.
If 7% have a very favorable opinion of a guy post him saying weird Nazi shit,
I have a question.
You can assume that they're at least okay with weird Nazi shit.
I have a question. Lactoid.
or that he's a really good musician.
Lactoid.
God,
And
his
they don't
last
care
people
about the
probably
message.
Hey, we gotta
Gary
let
Glitter
Evan-
after
stop,
wait,
stop,
people probably
stop.
supported Gary Glitter after he came out as a pedo. It doesn't mean they're going to go fucking rape kids. They
I
just
wanna-
thought
I
that
wanna
fucking
get-
Rock and Roll
whoa,
Part
whoa,
2 was
I want to make
better.
something really
Didn't
clear.
say they were gonna-
He's been on a downward slide since graduation that
I
has
will
no
start
fucking
muting things.
look like prospects of
I
looking
will
up.
start
His
muting
album's
people.
garbage
I
now.
swear I will. I swear I will. Okay.
Okay.
F-bombs need some space here. I'm going to give
Lactoid.
the
We
one
were on a-
Jewish person on this panel some space.
hold on, I'm
so
Jewish.
let's
Are you
let
saying?
F-bombs
Are
go.
you saying the
Yeah,
Jewish
Doobie's
person needs to
Jewish.
be given more representation? This is
Wait.
outrageous.
Lactoid. You and I were on a panel about Act 626 in Arkansas. And part of the assertion on that panel is that the increase in trans is a cultural phenomenon based on information. Are we to believe that this same cultural phenomenon doesn't happen with radical right beliefs?
So this panel must have been from a long time ago. I don't remember what my claims were in that panel. Like this was months ago, right?
Well, do you think the rise in trans ideology or the trans agenda, do you think it's a cultural phenomenon or not?
Likely to some extent.
So you are agreeing that this process does have an effect.
Potentially, yeah. I think that if you have, and I think there are like very smart people, very articulate people who argue in favor of this, who push this, and specifically some of it's like aimed at children. But when it comes to this, I just, like I said in my opening, I don't think Kanye is effective. I think that there likely maybe like a few of his followers that are like maybe more like Hotep oriented that are going to like jump on board, who are
So
probably,
back to
and in
feelings.
fact, they're probably like predisposed to follow him anyway. As you said in this very panel, you don't think this is
I'm just
actually going to
saying,
have any
the
major
trans-
effect on people who are not otherwise going to follow him anyway. You've said that before in this very panel.
The trans thing is actually they're just putting chemicals in the water. They're turning the frogs trans. That's what's actually happening.
Well, that's the Alex Jones theory. Yeah, I don't agree with that theory. I think it's pretty weird. But.
So the contention then is just that, like, oh, it's definitely going to, like, the entire. It's just not going to have a significant effect. Not a significant enough.
So
effect for you
not-
guys to care.
right,
They
not-
Just real
advocate
quick, gang.
for
I've been
Nazism,
just real quick,
literally.
gang. I've been paid to do 5 minutes of jazz hands while you guys argue about yay. So continue, please go ahead.
Taras is getting weird with his kinks now, man. This is
So
fucking
not only
out there.
Portland, not only is it that I don't think it's gonna have a significant effect, but I also think that like we have to calculate the negative effect, right? The people are gonna like who are maybe like sort of like with the dog whistles a little bit like, oh, that kind of makes sense, like that's a good point. Yeah, he's not a Nazi. That's a pretty good point. And then when he comes out and says this like these clips in between like tons of just like incoherent rambling, like these people are gonna be like, holy shit, he actually was crazy the whole time. Oh
we just
fuck.
need to raise awareness about the Jews in Hollywood. I agree.
I don't think
It's
teenagers are going to watch the entire 3-hour interview with Alex Jones and follow all the shit that sounds just like nonsense to them. I think they're going to hear the messages that they want to hear.
What?
They're going to see the things that are circulated 100 times on
Which
YouTube and the things that are
teenager
Hey,
is going
jazz
to hear
hands, jazz
Kanye
hands.
here at West say I love
Yeah,
Hitler
what are you
and say
doing? Get
I'm
back
going to
to
love
work.
Hitler. Anyway, I got to keep getting jazz
It's
hands.
not
But I think
going to like, oh shit, I saw that he said I love Hitler, so now I love Hitler. It's the people who are Googling it and being like, wait, did Hitler really invent highways and microphones? Is he really like,
And then they
the
see that he
Holocaust not really
didn't.
fucking happen, like he explicitly said? Are Jewish people really not the real Jews? Is it the black people? Am I
What
actually
search
a
engine are you
Jew and a
fucking
black
using?
And then they
Israelite?
see and then they see he's crazy.
Where are they going to find this idea?
Can I just say the idea that teenagers don't want to be edgy in the first place, like even if they grow out
Seriously,
of
like,
it,
there's so
if
much
they have a
connective
Nazi
tissue here. You
face,
guys are
that's
just like,
still
what?
bad.
What are you talking about? But like, fuck, man, people find things when they're primed to look for them. And if you're primed by somebody that you are told is like the most successful person in your demographic to ever live, he's posting shit like that fucking text where he had the, personal trainer threatening to use the coercive medicine and stuff to shut him up. Like, he has enough there to really inspire some deep doubt and curiosity in people who've been primed to hear that messaging already and don't
why
have
is-
like a political background that predates it.
Wait, so Kanye posting evidence that his personal trainer, who happens to be Jewish, threatened to have him institutionalized and medicated to the point where he couldn't like meet his children or whatever the fuck. That's something bad that
But
Kanye did?
he posted that in order to corroborate his claim that
Well,
the
maybe the trainer
WHO
shouldn't have said that.
that the WHO are controlling the media and him and
Hold on.
using their
So
Also,
power
can I
to.
what
just
was the
say,
trainer?
Who were those
What was the
people that his
trainer?
personal
What was the
trainer
trainer
was
demanding
one
that he
of?
do?
It's not just like, fuck, look, my personal trainer. And then a bunch of unrelated stuff. It's like, hey, the Jews are doing this. The Jews are
What
trying
was
to
the trainer
silence me. The
demanding
Jews
that
are
he
trying to
do?
control me. Look, here's a Jew trying to control me.
What was the
Like, this
trainer
is not
demanding that
fucking
he
a
do?
one-off thing. I'm
What
sorry?
was the trainer demanding that he do?
Exactly. You're fucking doing the thing
Can you
again,
answer
and
the
I'm not going to
question?
engage with it
Can you
anymore.
answer
This
the
is such a
question?
fucking cope-ass,
Can you answer the
bitch-ass argument
question?
from
You're
you.
not going to answer it, are
Fuck
you?
you,
Okay, I'll
Doobie.
answer it for you. I'll answer it for you. So the
Yeah,
trainer was
you'll do your
demanding.
dog whistling and your fucking
The
fake
trainer was
cuck bullshit
demanding.
apologia
Okay,
for
again,
Nazis.
you
Doing
understand?
it,
I
you
understand.
fucking
2016
coward.
insults. I get it. So the trainer was demanding that Kanye apologize to my people, the Jewish people. Right. That's what he was saying. So, like you guys, the trainer was fueling the conspiracy theory by saying, "Hey, if you don't apologize to Jews, I'm gonna have you
Holy shit.
institutionalized and have your fucking kids taken away." Just like you guys
Can I
did.
just say, Britney Spears had her kid taken away and had a conservatorship over her, and she didn't do any Nazi shit. So the idea that Kanye West doesn't need some help here is, I think,
Totally,
a
But
bit
totally
weird.
irrelevant.
A bit
Brittany
What the fuck
weird.
didn't
you
have
talking
the
about?
same disorders that Kanye did, right? Like she at least as I understand it, she doesn't have any like BPD or anything like that. Is that am
Well,
I
no, but
wrong?
my point was rather more to do with the fact that sometimes celebrities, when they go off the rails, get treated very differently depending on whether they're maybe like a man or a woman or whatever. And that Kanye West is just being allowed to go hog wild with it. When actually, to be honest with you, I'm not suggesting padded cell material, but like he needs to be taken out of control of his situation, at least for the
Why?
short term, because he's clearly destroying his life, literally, as we speak right now.
Wait, hold on.
Lobotomize
So
him.
he's a hold on. He's a fucking grown adult, right? So if he wants to go around and say dumb shit that makes him unpopular
Okay,
and gets his
there are
platforms
psychopaths
taken
in
away.
fucking mental
Hold on.
hospitals who are grown
If
adults.
he
you
wants to
daft
do this,
bastard.
it's
What the fuck?
plenty of adults do. Right?
Okay, I
That's his
just need to
prerogative.
correct
It's
myself.
ridiculous that you would suggest taking.
Brittany did have a mental illness. I was wrong. Okay, carry on.
Everyone in
In
a
fact,
prison,
this
everyone in a
further
mental
fuels
hospital is
the
a grown
fucking
adult.
conspiracy theory. If you dare to criticize the Jews, they're gonna take your money away and put you in
If
fucking
you dare
insane
to
asylum.
shave your head, they'll take your fucking money away. Like, what do you mean? The people who suffer
That's not all that
mental
Brittany did.
breakdowns
And what
get
happened to
help.
Brittany was a bad thing. She didn't get help. She was taken advantage of. She was
Clearly, she
exploited.
did get help because she's now better. She's now living at least a
Okay.
somewhat safe life, whereas Kanye West is
So you
just getting
think
worse and
that
worse
that
with
Brittany's
time.
father was in the right by taking her money and
No,
fucking
no, I'm
squandering?
not saying that. I'm suggesting that there are some people who need some fucking help, and Kanye West is most assuredly one of them right now. He needs to have some of his
Why?
control over the situation taken away from
Because he
him
has
because he
unpopular
clearly can't be
opinions.
trusted.
Has
No,
unpopular
not because he has
opinions,
an
therefore
unpopular
he can't
opinion.
have
He's
control of his money.
destroying his life. He's destroying his life. He's going to lose all access
That's
to his
if
kids
that's what
forever.
he wants to do.
Like,
That's his prerogative.
no, we
It's
don't say
ridiculous that
that
you
as a
would suggest
society. We
that
don't
because
say
he's
if you just
expressing
want to go and
something.
murder someone, if you just want to go and take
expressing
drugs and kill
that's not
yourself,
what he's
that's
doing.
fine.
He's expressing what he's actually doing is expressing an unpopular opinion.
He's
That is it.
hanging out with Nazi fuckheads and destroying
He'd like
any
to do
future
that, plenty of
employment
adults can do this.
opportunities.
If you, I don't want the standard to be if you hang out with adults and do things that are making you unpopular to employers, we're gonna put you in a fucking
Nick Fuentes
insane
is not an
asylum.
adult,
Or put
okay?
you in a
Nick Fuentes is a
conservatorship.
weird little fucking
Okay,
virgin
that's great.
con
Or put you in a
operator. Shut up.
conservatorship. Right? You're actually just fueling the conspiracy theory because what you're saying right now is if you dare
If
to
you do
criticize the
anything to
Jews,
Kanye West,
we're
that
going to
means
put you
you're
in,
like the
in an insane
Nazis.
asylum.
Big brain stuff.
And we're gonna take your money away, right? We're gonna put you in a conservatorship because clearly, if
That'd
you
be
dare to criticize
terrifying.
the Jews, you can't be sane.
Taken
ridiculous.
he doesn't have the money anymore. He's got no employment opportunities. He's got
Question
nothing.
for you, Logan.
He's not going to have access to
$millions
his
like, he's
kids.
fine.
He's going to have nothing.
He's got
They took his bank account
Just real
and law
quick.
firm.
Just real quick, question for you, Logan. So, given that, again, as it's being reported to me live right now, is that
For it.
one of the reasons that Brittany was put in the conservatorship is she had a very public breakdown that wasn't anti-Semitic, but shaved her head, did all this crazy shit, threatened her
Indeed.
own. So she was
Indeed she did.
forcefully put in a conservatorship, which
was.
ended up being super, super bad for her. So how do we, if this is what you're advocating for, and it sounds like you are, Kanye be putting in a
Oh,
similar
I'm not
conservative,
suggesting a
how do
full
we prevent
conservatorship.
the abuse that happened to Brittany from happening?
Well, firstly, I
Kanye?
think it needs to be an independent
pretty
person. It
crazy.
seems that her father was part of the problem and he was trying to essentially milk the situation, which is very unfortunate. So maybe you put it in the hands of a completely independent person who doesn't even know the or whatever. Like, you need some sort of neutral status, who isn't going to just try and milk the situation for money in a way that the father did. I don't know if Kanye has anyone around him that even could do a conservatorship. Like, who would it be? Nick Fuentes, for fuck's sake? Like, who does he have around him? Who even talks to him anymore? Alex Jones, Milo? It's, there's no one there. So
I think
I don't know what you do in that situation, but I think for his own good, he needs to be taken away from all microphones for a bit, at least.
Well, I mean, I just think maybe there's a position in the middle here where we don't need
And
to
highways.
institutionalize the guy, and we don't need to be completely, but there needs to be some way or method of him getting onto his treatment regime because he has been diagnosed as having bipolar disorder. By some accounts, it seems like he is in the midst of some manic episode. I mean, I'm not an expert in this stuff, but I think certainly, there should be some effort made for him to see a psychiatrist. Maybe one that
Is there
isn't
a way of
Jewish, just for
legally
his
forcing
benefit.
him- Yeah, exactly. Is there any way of forcing him legally to take his meds? Is that a thing
don't
we can do?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
no.
No, I think. Well, I think that
could.
under Reagan, they actually reversed a lot of the institutionalized places, and they were like hellholes by all accounts. But I think it just calls for some need in society that if someone is having some sort of mental breakdown, maybe we need somewhere we can house them where they're not going to get fucking abused and electroshocked, but also they're able to be taken care of so they don't end up having these crazy episodes. I don't know.
So you can,
Yeah, I mean,
you,
that's
like you
the problem,
can
right?
like
Is
come
like-
get them, but like normally the standard is they have to pose a threat to themselves or others. This is usually like interpreted within the lens of bodily harm. So if they're like gonna
I mean,
hurt
he's kind
somebody,
of a threat to Jewish people a bit, but maybe not enough.
Just for the
to,
memes, they should institutionalize him in Israel. Just for the memes.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
god, it'd be wild, wouldn't it? Take him to
I mean-
Bethlehem, Jerusalem's leading mental institution with Dr. Goldstein. It would be
I
fucking brilliant.
don't think that would be helpful. I
Yeah,
think that
well,
would
let's be
be
honest,
I think we
he's
need
in
a
place with
non-Jewish doctor for this one.
A Jewish sounding nurse, he's gonna freak the fuck out. So
Yeah,
like
imagine.
we need to obviously take very seriously the idea that he's been diagnosed as bipolar, and the people that are saying like, yeah, but he's obviously not like in the midst of like immediately being a physical threat to anybody. Like that's great, but we're dealing with someone who has a unique capacity to cause harm in ways that your average person probably doesn't. And there might be like a lot of things that even are being said on this panel right now that are helping to spread the idea that he's being like controlled, this idea that they took these things away from him, when if you read his own fucking interviews, by his own admission, the guy hasn't paid taxes in years for many of his businesses.
Based.
He's basically
Oh.
yeah, I know that, so you fucking love it. But regardless, the guy's financially illiterate by his own description, and now we're making accusations that he's being,
Eventually, eventually, when
having
the
things
tax
taken
man,
away when it's
the
by his
tax man
own
eventually
doing.
comes for his money, eventually,
Yeah,
he's gonna
especially
say,
when you
it's the Jews.
when you
The
fucking
Jews are
do
coming
things
after
that
me.
end
The
up
taxes I
terminating.
haven't paid for 12 years. It's
Right,
gonna
and
be
when you lose
ridiculous.
75% of your net worth because businesses break off their terminatable deals with you because you start saying things like, actually, Hitler's really cool, and I'm going DEFCON 3 on the Nazis. That
Flip it,
triggers
gang.
The
other
Jews.
fucking
The Jews.
mechanisms
Well, that
for
way-
your other debts to come due
So-
because you no longer have the liquidity to fucking support your assets.
well, that stuff came
These are not
after.
conspiracies. These are things that happen when people are financially illiterate and in control of billions of dollars.
You're right. That all the Hitler stuff came after. Like he lost everything once he said like I'm gonna go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, and then like boom, like
Yeah,
that's
that-
just,
the
Kind of
quotes
Hitler stuff.
the Hitler stuff came later. Like he was getting to that, but they stopped him from even saying it. Right.
There was a lower level of escalation that he had arrived at before the full-throated actually I love Hitler
Yeah,
that is now in his most recent fucking song. You're right. I
Also, can we
concede
just-
that point. He was
Well,
being
yeah. Well,
straight-
that's I think that's critical because it shows like the minimum amount of action that like needs to happen before you like lose everything.
Can I just point out, this is a wider point, but I think it's worth making, that Nick Fuentes and Miley Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones and everyone who's interviewed him and have taken advantage of this are fucking scum who are taking advantage of someone who's clearly having a fucking breakdown and they're trying to make money and get clout off it. These people are just the dregs of humanity.
True. Base. True.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get.
Right.
That's not a contentious topic here, right? Like, I think we can all take turns shitting on these people.
Well, I
They're-
think they might
they're-
just disagree about his this being like a mental health issue. They might think he.
Wait, do
believe
you
from what he says that
disagree?
he's
Do
not
you
mentally-
disagree this is a mental health issue?
I don't know enough about his diagnosis. He claims that it was he was diagnosed incorrectly, which happens. I don't know enough about it to say.
That is okay, right?
So
So
it
that's
could
fair
be-
enough, Doobie. I see where you're coming from, but people often, in the midst of some mental breakdown, will say, "I was diagnosed incorrectly," and they're like
Yeah,
fucking
of course.
smearing shit on the walls. Do you know what I mean? But I see where you're coming from. Like
So
you're
it
being
could
careful.
just be that like Alex Jones, for example, who's somebody who thinks he's been fucked over royally by the institutions, quote unquote, thinks that, oh yeah, it's possible that Kanye was misdiagnosed, right, to shut him up. Like this is within his wheelhouse, right? Like I wouldn't put it past. So I don't know. I think Alex Jones is a piece of shit for lots of other reasons. I don't know if this is one.
Sure. Have
I
you
think you're
have
offering a
any of you
level of
seen?
charitability to Alex Jones that he has not shown being worthy of at all.
Well, I think we should be charitable. to
Shit on Alex
everyone,
Jones,
but,
Doobie, right now. Say why he's
Um,
bad. Go on.
So there is
Have
some.
you watched Kanye discuss his mental health when he's accepting of his diagnosis and describing basically verbatim the kind of behavior he engages in when he's unmedicated and his like experiencing an episode? It's basically playing out in front of us in the most public way possible. It's exactly the way he describes himself as behaving when he has a manic episode. The only difference is now he claims that it's a misdiagnosis and he's actually just a fucking genius again. So, I mean, there's a huge, like
The
connective
lesson
tissue
in it,
here.
there's a lesson
And I
here,
think it's a
kids.
pretty short walk to say, like, yeah, he's clearly experiencing one of his own self-described episodes and being exploited by, as Kevin just pointed out, some of the worst human beings on earth as a consequence, with very, very little other than those people to support him or show any kind of like support for the other like crisis he's experiencing, like the loss of
They'll
his
drop
family.
him. They'll drop him like a fucking a spunk sock. As soon as he's not useful for them anymore, he'll be
So-
discarded.
Spunk sock.
a
I'm going to use
question.
that from
A
now on.
question then for all of you, especially
Doobie,
for
you're a
those.
spunk sock.
Just let me finish my question, right?
I'm sure you're real
And
familiar with that.
And then, like, for those
Jesus
of you, especially like F bombs, Portland, Logan, for those of you who think this is going to do real, actual harm and things like, what is your prescription here for how we handle this, right? Given that he is out there doing all these things, Logan mentioned institutionalization, right? Like, what are some of your other? Well, I want to hear from the rest of you. Like, what do you think should happen? If you think that this is a real thing that is really happening, that's going to cause real harm, what do you do? What is your advocacy here?
Inside of the rules of free speech that we have here, the best thing I can think of is counter, instead of having this debate, which I think is a distraction from the reality, talk to survivors of hate campaigns, talk to victims of hate campaigns, show the actual harm and the actual pain that is created. Talk about victims of Club Q down in the Springs. Talk about survivors in the neighborhood of Tree of Life, not the people that are shot, not just the people with bullets. Talk about everybody that prays in there. Talk about everybody that had their wedding in there, that did their bar mitzvah in there. Talk to the victims that are directly affected by the hate that these people spread, instead of trying to police speech that we can't police.
What do you think, Portland?
Stop helping him. Stop listening to his music. Stop advocating for him and signal boosting the most like charitable interpretations of his message, and start talking about the things that actually matter, like keeping a culture of anti-Semitism and bigotry in general in a place where we can talk about like where we can openly discourage it and not have to apologize for it by making extremely dishonest arguments about the nugget of truth at the core of it. And also try to like make sure that you do as much reading on people having mental health crises as you can, and be as available as you can to try to offer people support when you think they are having a problem, because I don't think that we'd be experiencing this kind of thing with Kanye West specifically if he hadn't like fallen into a place where he doesn't have a strong personal support system. His mom died, his family broke apart, and now the most awful toxic actors on earth are weaponizing a really, really toxic manifestation of mental health crisis in the form of religious or like cultural bigotry that it has a real potential to cause harm. We should talk about these things instead of trying to run defense for him and be a little bit more responsible.
Do you
in our
think
rhetoric.
people are running defense for what Ye is saying on this panel?
To a degree, yeah, I do. I think that when you're talking about how the only response is to make a mocking argument about how we need to install some sort of financial affirmative action to discourage the influence of Jewish people in the media, I think you're doing a pretty fucking gracious, like pretty severe disservice to this conversation and the people who are actually potentially impacted by its effects.
Any response, gang?
Can I just say, Kanye and Elon Musk seem to like each other very much. So let's make Elon Musk's dream come true, and the two cunts can fuck off and live on Mars.
Until he banned him.
I suggest that's fucking all. Let's go for it. Go, guys. Go and live on Mars, you pair of twats.
I mean, I guess my response to that would be just, I guess, an answer to your question, which is, I think part of a lot of this anti-Semitism kind of comes from the shared logic and principles that underlie the basis of affirmative action that is often pushed. I think that's the main problem. Just because there's disproportionate representation, that doesn't mean that indicates some kind of ulterior motive. It doesn't indicate some kind of unfairness. It doesn't indicate something that needs to be remedied. And I think, unfortunately, like this position that's being pushed is like laying the groundwork for anti-Semitism, and that's how Kanye got wrapped up in all this. Now he's like way down the fucking rabbit hole, but like that's what got him into it.
So is your
this wasn't a point that I was going to let this slide because it was at the start and it's got necessarily nothing to do with this topic, but a couple of times now you've done this thing where it's the left causing the anti-Semitism shit, right? But it's right wingers going into fucking synagogues and shooting the place up. It's right wingers in fucking Germany trying to overthrow the federal government. It's not the left that are a threat to Jewish people here, okay? Stop with your bollocks. It's nonsense. You know it's nonsense.
I'm saying they're using the exact same like principles and logic. Like the horseshoe theory is real.
The left are more dangerous. The left are more dangerous.
Well, I mean, that's true.
Is that your
What are
really
the
your
left doing?
assertion? Just
Where
real
are the
quick.
left
Is that
shooting up?
Lactoid? Let's be real. Let's be real here. Is that really your? Are you just memeing here? Is that really your assertion that
Yes.
the left is more of a threat for anti-Semitism, given all the data we have?
Oh, for
right?
anti-Semitism? I mean,
I don't know how that can
I don't
be
know about
true, because
that.
A lot of lefties are bed blobs and don't even leave the house. But
Yeah,
Exactly.
like we're not we're just gonna have a
They're on
Twitch
Twitter
channel on it. That's
posting,
what we're
mate.
gonna do.
I mean,
Right,
in
like-
terms of like explicit anti-Semitism, probably not.
Okay,
But
okay.
like sure. But like, but I'm saying more of like a
more like
more
looking at
more
someone's
dangerous,
jazz
like in
anti-Semitism.
more dangerous in total. But also, I think that like again, the groundwork has been laid and it's continuing to be laid. You can take your standard like left-wing rhetoric used like in race or gender, like CRT stuff, feminist logic. You take the exact same rhetoric and you just pull out the word white or man and you just insert the word Jew and you have a Nazi. And there's a reason for that, right?
Lactoid, what is CRT to you? What does that mean?
I mean, we can go into
Well,
critical.
okay, I just want to say
critical
something quickly. Okay, I think that it's, I've heard this before, and I somewhat see where you come from. I just think that sometimes when you change a single word, it can completely change the context of what's happening. But I do see where you're coming from, and I do think there's like an issue with that. Like, for example, it was quite funny seeing people who argue for like indigenous culture and how we need to respect indigenous culture, complain about the Qatari government cracking down on LGBT stuff because that is their indigenous culture at the end of the day. So, I think that there's an admittance that, yeah, we can have a value judgment about what we think about
I'm sure you
even
can-
indigenous cultures.
I'm not sure you can claim that Islam is indigenous. Like it's relatively modern, really.
Okay, but it's well, but the point
Modern
is
a
that's the
1,000-year
indigenous
timeframe, I
nation of the
mean,
that's the indigenous fucking perspective and ideology of their land, but that shouldn't be respected because we believe it's bad. And I happen to agree with that, but then that means that we can make value judgments about other indigenous kind of aspects and perspectives.
Well,
Surely,
of course we can. But what?
I'm
what
sure. No, I'm
aspect
sure
of-
you would probably agree.
What
my-
aspect of indigenous culture do you think is as bad as like killing gay?
Well, I'm not
people?
saying. Well, no. Hang on. Wait. That's disingenuous. I'm not saying that it's as bad as killing gay people. I'm saying that
Okay,
if
bad,
you question.
what's
No,
the
no,
thing
wait.
you
What,
wanna
no, I'm
critique
just
about
pointing
it?
some. Okay, but what I'm saying to you is that even the idea of a critique in and of itself is considered to be verboten because it's the wrong kind of indigenous culture that you're criticizing. But then it's okay. But the point isn't that like there's something specific I want to criticize. The point I'm making is that we can make value judgments about whether we think certain indigenous practices and cultures are good or not, and we should be able to do that wherever the case may be, regardless of what the country is. That's all that
I
I'm
think you
saying.
basically can. I mean, people will criticize you for it, but like if you criticize Qatar, then weirdo fucking ISIS supporters. come out
But
and
this
say
is
that you're being
but this
racist,
is the
like,
point that Lactoid is making, is that there's this inconsistency, which I agree with, that where sometimes people will criticize you, where if the framing of like the fundamental issue is like I say, you're criticizing one indigenous culture, but if someone were to criticize another indigenous culture, you take an issue with it on the basis that you're criticizing indigenous culture, not making a value judgment over this is bad and this is bad, or this is right and this is wrong. It's the fundamental aspect is you are criticizing indigenous culture and that's bad,
Okay, well,
rather than
but
asking is the
I'll take,
criticism
like-
valid or not. That's what matters.
I'll take a small amount of like inconsistency or intellectual like standard or whatever over like shooting up fucking synagogues or whatever. Like in terms of who's
Wait,
better
why
or
are you
who's
bringing
more
up shooting?
dangerous, the
Wait,
left or the
Kevin,
right.
why are you bringing
I'm
up
not
shooting up
arguing with
synagogues?
you. I'm saying with him. He was saying the left are more dangerous, and I'm saying that's not true. That's the only point I was
No,
making.
he's saying that this kind of identitarian like politics, right, that the left tends to put, which
Kid,
groups
you've been
people
arguing for
into,
fucking
into specific like
identitarian
ethnic
politics
or
all
racial groups.
night. What are you talking
That's
about?
not true.
Yes, it
How?
fucking is.
Can
You
you
were arguing
explain
that
how?
we needed to have affirmative action against Jewish people earlier today.
Hold
Like,
on.
what are you talking about?
It's not against Jewish people. What I'm talking about is diversifying these
Hey,
spaces.
in favor of
not
non-Jewish
favoring
people.
not
Is
favoring
that
one
better
group
for
over
you?
the other. I think having diverse perspectives and these
This
powerful
is where your
positions
memeing
is a
gets you
good thing
into
for the
trouble when you
country.
try and make a serious
How is
point
this?
because it completely
How
goes
is
against
this?
everything you've
How
said
is
so
this a
far.
meme? Can you please explain what is wrong with that statement? Having diverse people, diverse perspectives, and positions of power in our country is a good thing.
We need
What
more
what
white
about
people in
that is a
positions
meme?
of power. Definitely, 100%. There aren't enough of them.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
for
you're not
those
gonna
of you
respond. You're gonna meme.
for those of you who are really concerned
Because you're
about
only
Ye's
worth
rhetoric,
memes.
right?
That's all
For
you
those of
are.
you who are really concerned about Ye's rhetoric and things like that, how can we say that the left's rhetoric has not at least somewhat influenced, right, the radicalization of the right? Right? When we talk about things like reciprocal radicalization, where both sides extremes radicalize the other, do we not think that's a real thing? Like just steel manning lactoid a little bit here, right? Do we not think that when the left says things like, all cops are bastards and cops are literally out to kill you, they're literally going to kill you right now, like they're coming for you right now to kill you, right? Do we not do we not think that like makes people who are more supportive of cops and things like that see this and then kind of get radicalized themselves? Do we not think that has any influence?
Love Blacktoid, but his argument is always both sides. And I agree, both sides do bad things sometimes, but I don't think that that undermines the importance of examining each situation on a case by case basis. You want to have a panel on stochastic terrorism? We did that like 2 weeks ago. You want to do one specifically on left wing stochastic terrorism? Cool, let's do that. But to use those arguments here, you're just trying to muddy the playing field. You're just trying to muddy the water and turn the focus away from
No,
the
I'm
behavior.
trying to spark discussion. I'm trying to spark
and
like
you're doing
critical
it by
thinking.
a dishonest way. No, I understand. I'm just saying
You
that like
fucking
there's
Do you
no
think I'm being
way.
dishonest
This
here?
Kanye topic
No,
is
I
about
said I was
stochastic
kidding.
terrorism. Like, what do you mean? The whole contention is that Kanye saying these things is going to lead to people committing some kind of terrorist attacks on Jews. Right? This is about stochastic terrorism.
Yeah, I know.
He did
I'm
disavow
pointing out
violence,
that,
to
like,
give him a
this is
little
absurd.
bit of
Like,
credit.
if we want to talk more
He said
broadly
peacefully
about
protest.
stochastic terrorism in all its forms, we can. But if we're granting that that's stochastic terrorism and that what Kanye is doing is stochastic terrorism, or that even that those are equivalent things that we think are both really bad, we shouldn't be just like holding up one to excuse the other. We should be talking about the problems with the one in question, which is Kanye. And then we can talk case by case about the problems with BLM rhetoric or fucking Ilhan Omar's rhetoric or anybody else that you want in a different topic of conversation, because it doesn't feel very like fair to bring those
It's
up
relevant
as
because well, if we were
You
to bring
can't
up those
silo
other
these
things,
things
we could
off. They're
demonstrate.
connected.
Yeah,
But
we
we
could
agree.
demonstrate how you're not being consistent in the way that you're handling
No,
this
I
topic
am,
versus
because I
other.
already said in the stochastic terrorism panel, like I said, the rhetoric that Wick was talking about, like, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It probably leads to harmful results, and it's not something we should encourage. It's something that we should discourage. But it's not like that means that we can't talk about the capacity for one individual who has an enormous reach to do harm on the same or a similar level when he weaponizes his fan base or attempts to in like a harmful ideological way. That motherfucker on Gavin McInnes the next day or 2 days later was talking about basically like a more perverse example of what Doobie was talking about earlier, that like, well, when he gets into office, when he becomes president, he thinks that Jewish people should have to work for Christians because Christians uphold the Bible and Jewish people don't. This is fucking obviously crazy. And it's also the kind of thing that is unique in our need to discuss like what he's saying and not kind of run cover for it by talking about how someone else did bad
You
too.
just said
That's
it. You just said it. It's obviously crazy. And my whole contention here is because to every single person out there that doesn't already believe this, it's obviously crazy that it's going to get no traction in the real world. It's just
Wait,
not
Q-
going to work.
Q-
you
In
really
has
think
fact,
it's
no
just like
followers.
in fact,
it's a
I would
hard
argue.
binary.
I would argue
Q
just real quick.
has
Just real
no
quick.
followers. You're right.
F-bombs,
Ridiculous
F-bombs.
things.
Real quick. Let me finish. Just like before I get distracted here, right? So my contention isn't just that it's not normalizing Nazism. My contention is this is actually counter-effective. This is why the right is distancing them
just-
so hard. This is going to destroy
Would
the
you say the same
right's
thing?
potential to gain power in America
Would you,
for
would you say
years.
that? Would
That's
you say
ridiculous.
that
Hold
Alex
on.
Jones?
The
is
implication
obviously
there is
ridiculous?
that the right wing as a whole doesn't like Jews. Republicans love
Wait.
Israel. They love Jewish
Oh,
people.
oh,
like,
right. To be clear,
Oh,
the
I would
far
argue that
extremists.
alt-right- when is
Yeah,
the alt-right
loving
ever
but
gonna
I'm not
Israel
go
making
is
that
the
America?
same as loving
contention.
Jewish
I'm not
people,
saying
but
that there's going to be
regardless.
like some. I'm not saying there's going to be a tremendously effective openly anti-Semitic political movement built on Kanye West's back. I'm saying that Kanye West has a cult of personality that's well established, a tremendously broad and wide rate, like large appeal, and all he needs to do is turn a couple thousand people into anti-Semites or to normalize anti-Semitism to a few thousand people to cause real harm in the world, to cause it in cultures where it's already like where they're already highly susceptible to it because they are being oppressed by systemic power structures, and it makes sense to look for specific names and specific people that are responsible for that. That's how we think as
Can I
humans.
just respond to what Doobie said about love of Israel and love of Jewish people as if those are two connected things when actually they aren't, especially from the perspective of the GOP. The GOP support Israel because they have a large number of evangelical Christian Zionists who support them and are their base. And those people want Israel to exist because they want to fulfill a biblical prophecy in which all Jewish people will also be killed come the rapture.
How many
So
people is
actually,
that? And how
they're
many people
being
just like
anti-Semitic.
Okay, but how many people is that? Or how many people is it that just think, yeah, they're blowing up the fucking or fighting the bad Browns? Like, I just think
well,
this is
most Zionists in the
Well,
world are
again,
actually evangelical
this-
Christians who live in America. They are
this
the
is where
majority of
this is
Zionists.
where there I think this is where I think there's a total underestimation, which is like if you look if you go by that logic, it's hard to explain how 40 million people believe the election was stolen. It's hard to believe there's 3 million Q followers. It's hard to believe if you look at an individual basis, you think an individual was smarter than that. But when you look at the totality of groups, there are growing masses that fall for these things that we know are ridiculous.
Do you think that it's people are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories today than they were 50 years ago?
Yes.
That's just not true. There's data showing
I-
this. They've
yeah,
done
I-
studies on this. It's just not true.
I would
It's
say
wrong.
they're
It's
they're
specious.
probably as
Yeah, it's about the same.
acceptable now, but it's just that every dickhead's got a camera and a microphone and can start a YouTube channel and become Alex Jones or whatever. you know,
They
that's-
all have more of them have a voice now,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But that's
Whereas
because more
before they
people
were the
have a
fucking
voice.
lunatic at having to do daguerreotype fucking not daguerreotype whatever the homemade newsletters and hand them out at the bus stop and no
But
one ever heard of them.
My larger point here is
Okay,
that
wait, sorry, no, there's an important point there. Sorry, Wick, to cut you off, but this is important, okay? This is my whole fucking point about how institutions set the stage, right? And it's when institutions cut off people's speech, you know, which I think can be bad and we should be worried about sometimes. But this is where people truly start to find themselves, start to struggle. And if you look at someone like Milo, you know, who, by the way, got cancelled by the Republicans, not by fucking Antifa, as people seem to claim. You know,
Actually, got
they've
cancelled by me. I was involved in that. I'm just saying.
True. Well done, Kevin Logan. That was damn. That's going back a bit. I probably would have disagreed with you a lot more back then. But in any case, the point I'm making is I think that it's these institutions that truly control, you know, discourse over and above all else, where you can get cut off from these platforms and stuff. And that is the true issue when you really do have to start scrabbling about to survive. A lot of people don't, but you have people like Milo, who I think is like almost like a cockroach in the way that he's able to survive pretty much anything and still continue to progress forward. But pretty much anyone that's been nuked by these big tech platforms, aside from people who've got this persistence, you know, tend to really have their kind
He
of
survived because he's definitely not gay anymore. He's post sodomy, so it's fine. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the funny thing with Milo is it's amazing how he managed to retain enough of political connections despite the pedo controversy that he was embroiled in.
Well,
That
now,
you
did
know,
you see he's been distanced. He's now no longer a part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
TBA.
I don't know what the story is behind that, but yeah, certainly there
Well,
was
did you know
tweets that came out.
Milo's like half Jewish though. It was always
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
that he was involved in that campaign at all, but and he's as anti-Semitic as he is. He half self-hating. I don't understand how it works.
Yeah,
Look,
sure. But sorry, go on. Sorry, Wickham.
no,
I
it's
cut you off. Go
okay.
on.
Self-hating is no, I've totally lost my point. You've destroyed it, but it was an important point talking about institution. It's an institutional power. So there's a lot of people, and this to kind of go into the larger topic here, right? And me and F bombs have had this conversation before, right? People will point to things like the January 6th insurrection. People will point to all these instances of horrific, like to be clear, very horrific terrorism in many cases, right? And say, look, see, this is so powerful now. This is having such a big effect. But actually, right? Like we're seeing more of it now because more people care about it now. This has happened for decades and decades and decades, right? This isn't new. The talk about election denialism, that's not new. The new thing about it was Trump, who was a big name, said it. But even when I was a kid, people used to joke about Democrats getting out the dead to vote, right? And voting twice and vote early, vote often. Isn't that what
Well,
Al
true, but
Capone
we
said, right?
look
But this is a thing
bring
that's been there forever in
to bring it
politics.
back to
Right?
anti-Semitism. We know that there has been a recent uptick in the number of anti-Semitic hate crimes and physical attacks upon Jewish people in America. Yeah,
Worldwide.
that's a
Wait,
thing.
wait, wait, wait,
It's
wait, wait, wait.
worldwide,
No, but
dude.
that's not to do. We don't have the figures yet for that for this Ye stuff. But in
No,
2021,
but I'm
there
saying
was
this feeds. I'm not. Yeah, obviously, I'm not blaming Kanye for that. I'm saying that his attitudes probably don't help the idea, or don't help
Sure, they don't help.
with
I'll agree with
I
that.
mean,
future
okay,
potential for that.
sure. The thing is like if you said right, you got two options. Ye can either say a bunch of anti-Semitic shit, or Ye doesn't say anti-Semitic shit. Obviously, I'm going to choose the latter because he is an influential guy, and him not saying it is probably preferable for my worldview than him saying it. My issue is the overstating. Like, I'd be happy to say that there's a risk of increased anti-Semitic hate crimes as a result of this, but then the fact that it is still a hate crime, and the fact that it's dealt with so harshly, and the fact that most people are going to condemn, a Jewish person getting attacked, I would say, just on the basis of them being Jewish, I think supports the idea that American society is still very much opposed to, at the very least, over expressions of Nazism and praise of Hitler.
Look, according to the
Yeah,
ADL, at
that's
least,
fine. But I
America
don't. The
is one of the
question.
least anti-Semitic nations in the world. Just less than Britain, less than France, less than most of Europe, right? Less than obviously the Middle East, less than
Rocky
China.
numbers.
It is
Fucking
simply
rocky
like
numbers from the USA. Embarrassing.
I know it's
Jesus.
crazy, right? But like we are overstating, and I understand why because it is concerning. And even just a little, I'll agree with Portland on this. Even just a little is too much. But at the same time, we have to keep things in perspective, right? And not overblow or hyperbolize because we want
Well,
people
but
to
this
be
is the
able to
thing.
trust
The
us.
question.
When we say the sky is falling, we want people to listen. Not,
Okay, but the
the
question.
winner in the story of the boy who cried wolf is the wolf, right? He gets to eat people.
True. Okay,
Good
but
point.
the question I certainly interpreted this debate was would this normalize or begin or certainly start to normalize anyway anti-Semitism in America, or presumably America, but the world more largely because he's a worldwide figure. Will it necessarily bring about some sort of artsy America? Because I don't think anyone realistically believes that is the thing. It's will this aid the cause of anti-Semitism or the growth of Nazism in America? And I think undoubtedly to some extent, whether you think it's significant enough to make much of a noise about or not, I think it's undoubtedly the case that it will aid anti-Semitism.
Okay. Well, with that, we are kind of winding down a little bit. We're not ending the stream. After I let these wonderful people have their outros and they can go if they like, Weaponized Discourse will be joining me for a call-in session after. So if you've been listening and molding in chat and you want to have a discussion about this with me, you can call in and we can talk after this. Many of you are welcome to stay, but you don't have to. But I want to give everyone here a chance to have a closing statement. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming, and thank you for mostly being respectful of each other. Well, I don't know if I could say that actually. And to my audience, thank you for the support. Tomorrow, if you thought this was great, tomorrow we have Not So Erudite on, and she's going to be arguing with Smugbug, Kurantos, Weaponized Discourse, and a few others on whether
Well, if
therapy is a scam or not.
I was
Hey.
So,
going to say, if you think this was great, you'll probably enjoy Not So Erudite because she's a prick as well. Yeah.
well,
Okay.
no love
Jesus,
lost
what the
there.
fuck?
No love lost
Wow.
there. But
Where did that come from?
speaking of
Shots fired.
normalizing,
Incel panel, Chud.
and speaking of normalizing misogyny, Chud, please tell us your closing statement here.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, actually, it's been a bit spicy at times. I've just enjoyed watching everyone else tear each other apart. I've tried to be as good faith and as nice as I can to you all. But yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, I think we've had a reasonable discussion and kind of had topics to like we got to the point where there probably is an issue, but we just need to be cautious about overstating it. I'm pretty happy with that, which is more or less my position. So yeah, cool with that. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, gang. Chud Logic's great. Check him out. I put his link in chat. If you don't know who he is, what are you doing with your life? Doobie, please.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that so many lefties become fucking libertarians when it comes to like the affirmative action thing when you apply it to the Jews. I think that's a massive problem, and I think it actually fuels anti-Semitism. So I think you guys should just apply your positions consistently. Yeah, I'm Doobie. I help run the politics server on Discord. Discord.gg/politics. You'll find me there.
Check him out, gang. It's a happening server. You want to talk to people, you can
Is
find
that-
people to talk to.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that the Nazi Discord that I keep hearing about?
It is the Nazi Discord, the one.
The preeminent Discord.
72,000 Discord Nazis on that.
Wow, that's an army.
Yeah,
That's
so
a funny-
that's concerning.
in
Like we
there.
talk about Yi having a group to mobilize. Let's look at Doobie. Next up we got and thank you for coming, Doobie. Odd takes. Next up we got F bombs for you, please.
Okay. To think that words don't eventually lead to actions is silly. Words lead to emotions. Emotions lead to actions. Sometimes those actions are actually violent. You can see that with the Boston Children's Hospital, with Matt Walsh and Libs of TikTok mentioning them directly, and then you see direct bomb threats and them having to evacuate. So you know words can lead to direct action. So I think it's interesting that the people that think the trans ideology is out there transing kids and that is spreading based on the rhetoric, but somehow praising Hitler and praising Nazis isn't. And finally, I do want to thank Doobie for not doing the affirmative Jewish action thing for this panel, because I probably would have gotten kicked as the lack of experience here of Jews overrepresented on this panel.
Wait, to be
I-
very clear, I am Jewish.
I know, so am I, and we overrepresent on this panel. So I appreciate not having to get kicked from the panel because we're overrepresented.
That makes sense.
I am F bombs for you stands for facts based on my brain. We're in a post-truth, post-fact world. We exist on emotions, and we need to start talking to people based on that way.
Check him out, gang. I put his link in chat. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being willing to stand up for what you believe. We really do appreciate you. Next up, we have KF Logan, please.
Yes, hello there. I came onto this panel mainly to dispel the rumours that I and Chud Logic are the same person. But looking at us, he's just me wearing glasses. It's like Superman. He takes the glasses off and he's Clark Kent again or whatever. Like, it's ridiculous. Anyway,
Oh my God.
It's true.
white beardy fucking ugly bastard affirmative action took place tonight. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, Kanye West is a prick. Nick Fuentes is a prick. Alex Jones is a prick. I'm awesome. Check me out at KF Logan 1875. Peace.
Yeah, give him a follow, gang. He's been great. Thank you for being on here, and thank you for being willing to support your position. And you're right, like you guys look exactly the same, though I would say that you are Chud still is British Wick. Okay, Chud is British Wick. You can be Soy Wick. And there we go.
Oh
You're
my
good.
god.
Nice. I'll do
Okay,
it.
Lactoid, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. In summary, lefties and Nazis are both terrible identitarians, and that's why we should combat both. Kanye West is obviously he's got issues. Everything he said was crazy or just factually inaccurate. Ultimately, there's no reason why we should be thinking that disproportionate representation matters when it comes to whether like government action or even the kind of soft action that's being espoused by Doobie and the rest of the panel for every group except for the one group that Doobie wants to include. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at Anti-Communism United on Discord, Twitch, and YouTube, or Anti-Com United on Twitter. Thank you.
Never heard of that football team. Anti-Communism United.
He's out there. If you
It's
wanna
the best
give him
team
a
there is.
follow- If you want to give him a follow, you can, gang. And he's been very gracious to be my token conservative shill on this panel. So thank
Again,
you.
he's one of
for
the few that
representing
doesn't
that.
say the N word on stream, so he
Um,
gets to come on.
Well,
Hey, people!
gonna-
I will
It's my
say this.
job. I
will
promise.
say this.
Otherwise,
People behave themselves on my stream in a way they don't on others. I had President Sunday on the other day. He behaved himself. If that's not like just
You
shows
should hear
what
him
a
off
great,
stream. It's
yeah,
N
you
bombs
should
all
see him
over
on
the
stream.
place. He
It's
can't help
crazy.
himself.
But on my stream, he behaves himself. And if I can make President Sunday behave, I can make all you fuckers behave. So next up, speaking of behaving, someone who has tried to misbehave tonight. Portland is burning. Go ahead.
Thanks for having me, Wick. Portland is burning on Twitch and Twitter, in case you can't read the sign behind me. Sorry for the mean things I said to Doobie. I didn't realize he was Jewish.
I just say I am, even though I now know he's Jewish, I do not apologize for
Okay.
the mean things I
Gang.
said. I'm doubling down. Fuck you.
Check him
Yeah,
out.
I'm
at
not one of those
Portland is Burning.
uneducated blacks you're afraid.
Okay. I'm gonna take a small bio break. Right?
No, you're not.
Small bio
No, you're
break.
not an
Look,
uneducated black.
Wick's
You're
trying to end it.
uneducated Jewish.
Let
Yeah,
Wick end
okay,
it.
cool.
Wick,
I want to
end it.
end this. I'm Team Meteor. Hashtag Team Meteor at this point. Okay, gang. So I'm going to end this all, and I'm going to take a bio break for about a minute or two, and then we'll be back, and we'll have Weaponized Discourse call in, and we'll be taking your calls. So if you have thoughts on anti-Semitism, if you have thoughts on what's been said today, if you have thoughts about issues that regarding Yay that need to be discussed that we haven't, call in. I'll give you the Discord. And yeah, we'll have that. You guys can stick around if you want, or you can leave. I don't care. Bye. Don't go anywhere.
See you guys.
Catch you later, guys.
Bye bye.
fun times.
Pleasure as always, Toyd.
Hey, can you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
entertain my chat for like 2 minutes while I'm gone? Just make sure
Oh,
that they
sure.
stay here.
Sure, I suppose.
Man,
So,
we should get paid
have,
for
uh,
this.
do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, here's my final thoughts. My actual final thoughts. I thought this topic was way more fun and interesting than I thought it was going to be, and I feel like I say that a lot about these panels. So no, I had a great time. I got to get out a lot of my factual statements that you lefties would call propaganda, but obviously it's not. And I think a lot of people realize now, or they're waking up to the real problem. So
They're waking up to the real problems
Mm-hmm.
is Lactoid's takeaway from the conversation about Kanye and the Jews. Oh fuck. Okay, that's a good.
now that's not.
ending.
Wait. It sounds bad when you say it like that.
Yeah, it sounds bad when you frame it correctly.
I do think though that like, and this is something that, so I know Doobie believes what he has said because we've debated it before, specifically the Hollywood thing, and we talked about it. You know, there are absolutely like legal mechanisms, like identical to affirmative action, that you and like minority-owned business grants and stuff like this. There are absolutely ways that you could structure some kind of framework to help everybody except the Jews, and he's in favor of that, and I'm not, based on like just consistency, right? Like I'm against all of these, funding programs, all these grants, against affirmative action. Like Asian people are like, and this is actually, I mean, I have the numbers from Harvard for this, right? Because the Harvard lawsuit happened, and Harvard at least had to release a lot of the numbers, and there's been like actually like statistical analyses done on like what the effect of affirmative action has been on like the racial demographics of Harvard between certain years. And I mean, on white people, it's actually not that much. It's like only if like a few like single percentiles of like white people that wouldn't get in if affirmative action didn't that would get in if affirmative action didn't exist. But when you look at Asians, it's like a third, more than a third of Asians just don't get in because they're Asian. It's absolutely wild.
It seems like I mean, I never even really got to explain my perspective on affirmative action, which like I tend to kind of align with Chud that it's like an imperfect tool to achieve a noble end, not something that I think works necessarily the way that I want it to in every scenario, and certainly isn't something that I'd look to expand the capacity of into more like into discouraging ownership, as like using those mechanisms to discourage ownership among certain groups in certain media landscapes and other industries. I think that there's a huge, when we disagreed about this on the panel because you asserted that it's a zero-sum game and there's no difference in your mind between discouraging and encouraging participation among minority groups. And I just don't think that that's true, because I think that we have to acknowledge that there's not, there aren't reasons attributable to governmental action and like systemic opportunity being like, other people being deprived of systemic opportunities isn't why Jewish people have the station that they do in terms of like their economic share of things like media and finance. There's just a fundamental difference between a problem that the state caused and something that was the market naturally arriving at a certain state that we need to like delineate before when we're talking about state action.
I know I got to go, Wick. I just wanted to one sentence response to that. I think the fact that we're doing like an historical analysis at all when we're talking about individuals living today, I think that's like the kind of identitarianism that I have a problem with. Because, I look at two babies of different races born today. The idea that one of them deserves more than the other because of something that happened in the past, I think is just wrong, right? You need to look at the situation they're in
I'm
today.
for equal opportunity or both.
Fair enough. Talk to you later, buddy.
Yep, catch you later, man. All right. Well, that was fun. And then I apparently got some new Discord joiners. They want to have a meme channel. So, Grumpelstiltskin, welcome. I know a lot of people just post memes in the General Voice channel. There are a few channels that you get to see with special roles, like anti-communist plotting, for example. We need to you gotta demonstrate that you're not a lefty. But I'll be honest, I mean, really, the text chat that's active is going to be General Voice. So, yeah, that's Wick's shtick, just to drop in people from the panel. It's fun. Well, thank you, Grumpelstiltskin. I'm glad you ran into me too. So this is a libertarian, somewhat conservative stream. Absolutely, I will. I'll check my PMs. But libertarian conservative stream. I love politics. There's a legal element to this. I am a lawyer, so it's a legal political stream. We do a lot of panels, all that good stuff. It is a ton of fun. So, and then you can, Feder here also drops incredible dad jokes in, drops in incredible jokes about stuff. So very, very fun. Great dad jokes, right? Anyway, Feder. Yeah, no, we got some good people here. So, no, it's good shit. I appreciate everybody coming in today. I appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this awesome debate. We obviously have more content coming. I know likely this Monday we'll be doing Prime's panel. We try to do that every Monday, and so far we've been invited every Monday, which we're thankful for. And then obviously we had this happening. So, and then we have, obviously every week we got stuff coming. So we try to keep things interesting and keep things fun. Yeah. All right. Now, the last thing, Feder, just go ahead and join my Discord when you have a chance after I'm done streaming, if that's okay. And I will go ahead and raid us into Fabian Liberty Scott. We're going to give him a raid, and it's going to be just dandy. So thank you guys again.